Hey, team players, and welcome back. It's Trade Tuesday. I know we're approaching some trade deadlines in your independent leagues, but we are still here rocking it out and making it happen. So I love all the team players starting out with questions before we even kick off. Welcome to the party, one and all. Love to see you in here, Jesse and Bryce. Javonte Williams, count your days. Absolutely horrid. I mean, kind of been on that bus for a while, though, guys, haven't we? Just the way it's been. So would I drop Rico for Estime or Davis? See, this is the hard conundrum that is Dallas, isn't it, Jesse? Is that, let's face it, Dallas ain't good. I mean, there's no way around that. There's no real way to try to justify that even deeper. But they also are in a spot where schematically, what else can they do? And, not to go all Avengers here, but that's essentially the question. What else can they do except for burn? At least Rico Dowd will take some time off the clock in the process of them getting annihilated. We look at this and say the team's out of it. They're not going to be able to throw the ball. They're burning their best asset in CeeDee Lamb. So I would keep Rico just for the simple fact that I know he's going to have a ton of volume, and I'm not sure I want to get married to either of the other two moving forward. Davis would be my lean above Estime, but that's where I would go there. So my long story short answer for you, Jesse, is no, I don't want to go down that road rather than the other two. Are the cars legit? That is a very good question. So from a defensive perspective, I'm going to go with no. They're situationally sound. And overall, from the fantasy defensive perspective, I look at it like this, is that there are at least 7 horrendous offenses in the NFL right now. Just real quickly off the top of my head. Vegas, New England, I want to start against those two every single week. The Cowboys are probably close to there. Carolina's defense or offense is horrible. New Orleans offense is pretty bad, although with Carr back, they might be better. So long story short, there's a ton of bad offenses. And I would rather just keep plugging away with the subpar defenses against a good matchup, which is what you got here with Carolina, or correction, with the Arizona Cardinals. So I don't think they're legit. I think you had a lot of matchup circumstances, Buddha with a couple of really, really good plays. But overall, I'm not investing in the Cardinals for the long-term Jacks. It's just not where I want to live at. Those aren't happy waters to me. Love you guys shooting your questions. Make sure you start them off with a DD or a QH. QH just means quick hit. I'll answer it in the order it comes. DD, we're going to save it and wait till Bob arrives here and go more into depth for it. Half PPR, drunk traded Henry and Higgins for Kyrene and Reed. Ugh, all right. Do I let it go through or drop Higgins to keep Henry? All right. So Higgins is someone that you need to trade. That's a starting point. We do want to get rid of Higgins. I understand the not wanting to get rid of King Henry, though. That being said, you're certainly lower. This isn't a hard win for you on this trade. It's also not a hard loss either. I really do think that Reed's going to give you a good second half. He's probably going to be an upgrade over Higgins moving forward. Remember, Higgins keeps giving you zeros anyway. Is Kyron going to be the number one running back? No, certainly that's going to be King Henry. But it's not the worst case scenario when we look at this. Your lineup is going to be Saquon, Kyron, Puka, Tyreek, and Reed. I really like where your team's at. I would have liked it more with Henry. I don't think I would have done that trade, period, because I love where your team is at. But I also believe in honoring the terms of the game. If you put the trade through, drunk or not, you got to live with it. It's not a horrendously horrible trade. It will downgrade your starting lineup, but there are worse starting lineups here. I still think that for a 12-man roster, whether it be Henry or Saquon, you're in a spot where you're winning the championship. Either way, Higgins or Reed's probably not playing over Debo when everything gets together. So that's how I look at that one. Alrighty. Dobbins and Bucky for Jacobs. You're worried about playoff schedule and Gus Edwards. Your running back room is currently Cook, Dobbins, Tracy, Bucky, Brooks, and Estime. So, yeah, no, I'm all for this. One of the things that you'll hear us talk about a lot on this system is the need and the desire to cut the fat. And that is exactly what you're doing here. The fear for Dobbins is legit. I'm not quite as scared about it as other people are. Dobbins is the best athlete in that running back room for the Chargers, and he's going to continue to be. So I just want to put that out there. That being said, getting Jacobs in return is a more stable play entering into the playoffs. I think that it is an upgrade over Dobbins, and I'm okay with it. I like that you still have Bucky and Brooks as potential late home runs, especially Brooks. So I'm good with that trade. Hey, guys, love that you're listening and throwing the quick hits up on the follow-up questions here. Make sure you keep doing quick hits and deep dives. Welcome back, all, by the way. Brad McCoy. You have a mod, DJ Thomas, Waddle, Olave. Feel like I need to make a move for a receiver, or your room is done. I got you. And you also have Saquon, JT, Tracy, Hunt, and Chubb. Okay. I'm 100% with you. Let's upgrade where we should the best. Amah, slam dunk. We're going to build around him as a piece. DJ Moore is someone that since day one of the season, May, I have been off the DJ Moore bus. And I really just think it was part of the ESPN hype machine to try to make the Bears look better than they are. By the way, the schedule makers tried to make the Bears look better than they were too. That team is going to implode hard. So Caleb Williams is a disaster. So DJ Moore is the first and foremost spot I want to move off of. Now, we have a couple of assets here to be able to make two quality trades here in a 2-for-1. What I would say is start by doing Moore and Hunt and go for a swing. You should be able to get into a Metcalf, maybe a Devonta Smith, someone of that nature where you'll be able to get a quality player that's going to produce week in, week out. And the reason I'm okay of giving up Hunt is A, he's your number 4 running back, but more so his time limit's coming to an end here. At some point, Pacheco is going to come back, and Tracy has legitimately jumped over him. So that's going to be the first spot I'm going to look to upgrade. The second spot I'm going to look to upgrade is going to be combining either Thomas and Waddle or your tight end to do a second upgrade as your second receivers. So, Brad, I'm actually presenting you to do 2 different trades here, combining Moore and Hunt, and then either Thomas and Waddle or your tight end in a nice little triangle to go get the second trade to get an upgrade receiver. Welcome to the party, Bob. About to jump in here with Rumple, baby.
All right.
On the bench, Juju, Keon Coleman, or Wandale. So, of that group of 3, Juju, Coleman, or Wandale, Bob, who are you most interested in cutting?
I need a kicker this week, so I need to draw someone. Realistically speaking, I'm a little bit like we've been talking about these players for quite some time now. The only thing for me about Wandale is there is limited to 0 touchdown potential. So if you are okay with the volume and the limited number of yards, then I think it's okay to keep Wandale. Juju, with the injury, I mean, he's the only healthy one out of the 3, right, to begin with. But when we look at it from just a perspective of where opportunities will be, Keon Coleman will have opportunities, but again, the narrative will be stated that those matchups, he's a very volume dependent as well. He needs to get the amount of targets to get down the field to be useful. And Juju, with the Hopkins signing, who knows what his role will be once he comes back healthy. So, in my opinion, I think the safest drop would be Wandale because he doesn't have the touchdown potential, but also you don't know what you're actually going to be getting from Juju and Keon, barring health concerns. So I think
Yeah,
there's
and that's
multiple
a
ways to
completely
look at
fair
it.
answer. Yeah, I'm going to lean that way too. You're sitting in a spot here where the rest of your team's solid. That you're never going to click that box on Wandale to come in playing your lineup. I mean, you've seen Daniel Jones play the last 2 weeks. You don't want to see it. It's something like, you know how you hear something, you just wish that thought never entered into your brain, but you can't unhear it? That's what the game tape of Daniel Jones is. And, I just don't want any assets tied to him. He's not quite as toxic as a bear, though. All right, Brad, should I do JT and then either Waddle and DJ Moore and Brian Thomas for AJ Brown, or do you think I should maybe do Tracy for Tillman straight up? I don't want to get Tracy off your team. I probably don't even want to. I like the idea of swinging for AJ Brown. I like that. DJ Moore is certainly a dude I want to get off. So to go back to what your roster was, Bob, this is what you walked in on. I was recommending moving Hunt instead of JT for him to go, but I was also saying go for a Metcalf. Brad's going for the next tier up and going for AJ Brown. Overall, I think I still want to go Metcalf, and here's the reason why. Nothing wrong with AJ Brown. I love him. He's one of my dudes. But when that schedule is soft for Philly, Hurts takes the touch on himself. And we saw that last week. They put up, 30 points, and they didn't give – well, Brown got with the one touchdown, but that was it. And you're not going to get really much more than that out of Brown. Grant, he's still going to give you amazing numbers. But I like Metcalf more because he's cheaper. You'll be able to keep JT on your team. And I think combining Hunt and DJ Moore gives you a better outlook moving forward. But again, DJ Moore, Thomas are the ones that I really want to move there, diving into you a little bit deeper there, Brad. Like I said, I don't want to move JT. I do like the idea of acquiring Tillman, but you probably can do that for Waddle at this point, or
No, I
BTJ.
disagree. I mean,
I would do it for BTJ though.
The thing is, Waddle, DJ Moore, and BTJ all have limited value return right now because BTJ's situation has gotten worse. Still, he's skilled. DJ Moore's situation hasn't changed, and Waddle's situation hasn't improved either, based upon what we expected the situation to be. So, while I think that there is someone out there in the world that might want Waddle still based upon potential, for everything that we said about Tillman a couple weeks back and everything we said about him this past week and last week, I don't think that any of the players that you're currently throwing out there other than Tyrone Tracy would move you into Tillman, to be honest with you, because of the high upwards potential if Jameis Winston continues to play.
But Brad, you can't do a team where you trade JT and Tillman. You can't be relying upon Hunt like that.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to trade JT and Tracy. So I would think of which one of these I wanted to do. So I do think that JT has a lot of value and Tyrone Tracy has a lot of value. What I'd want you to think about, Brad, is which one of those players do you want more? Do you want AJ Brown more or do you want Tillman more? AJ Brown definitely provides you with the better opportunities. But what I want to say, too, is that Philadelphia doesn't have the best passing offense. They don't have to.
No.
And so there is, if you're giving up a player with the massive volume that JT has, just understand that you might not get that same return back from AJ Brown right now. Because when I looked into the stats, I was really shocked to see that Jalen Hurts has just about as many attempts and completions as Caleb Williams right now. And only about 12 passing touchdowns.
The difference is he does stuff with his attempts.
I get that. But what I'm communicating is that as they get closer and closer to the goal line.
Oh, yeah, he just runs it.
This is Hurts and Saquon Barkley territory. So I would rather move Tracy for Tillman and keep JT, but if I didn't have to move either of them, I wouldn't.
Fair enough. So trade Kamara for Nico. I'm doing that all day, my man. All day I'm doing that, Shane. So Stroud's your quarterback. You're currently running back receiver is CMC, Kamara, Garrett Wilson, Devontae Smith, Brian Robinson. Yeah, dude, putting Minka Collins in there and then putting Robinson as terms of your number one receiver, as soon as he's healthy, I think that you're going to be putting yourself in a better spot. Let's face it, I think that even though it's a half PPR, Collins is going to give you better long-term moving forward. I saw a statistic the other day that Kamara is on pace to break the record for targets at a receiver. He flat out, he's just too old and brittle to do that. It's not going to work out. Half PPR, it's diminished his returns for you anyway. So if you can get that trade done, Shane, I'm endorsing that 110%. Bobby, how are you, Kamara for Collins?
I could see for your team, Shane, that it would have a good return for you, but I would be careful about Alvin Kamara right now is in the fact that he's still getting a really good amount of volume in the passing game. And while the running game might not be the best for the Saints right now, I would be really concerned about giving up the volume that he's getting in the passing game. With that said, I do think that adding Nico Collins to your team makes it a better situation for your wide receiver room because Garrett Wilson and Devonta Smith, as I said before, with the quarterback situation for Philly and the situation for the Jets, that those situations are going to be kind of volatile going forward. So I would do it, but I would also understand that, I think Kamara could put up similar-ish numbers as Nico on a week-to-week basis. So it just really depends on do you think you're going to get a better value?
I think Collins is going to be a safer play though, as we go down the stretch.
But my question only for you, Shane, is in this respect is, do you feel that CMC, Kamara, Garrett Wilson, Devonta Smith, Brian Robinson would be able to put up more points than CMC, Brian Robinson, Garrett Wilson, Devonta Smith, Nico Collins? And I don't know if the answer is that you're going to get like a definitive, like exponential point improvement by doing this trade. I'm
pretty sure his volatility decreases, and that's what I like about it. The other part I like about this, Shane, that I would take to the second level, I've said this 500 times, but it now allows you to be able to trade Garrett Wilson. And if you do that as the second follow-up trade, I think you put yourself in a really great spot. But I like that trade as it is as a starting point outright. And again, tell everyone out here, repeat it again, I am a running back whore. So quick question, with McBride on bye, should I pick up Jonnu Smith, Taysom Hill, or Knox this week? Bob, how do you fit upon this in this desperate tight end market? I'm assuming you're going to want Taysom, but
Taysom was supposed to have, based upon the metrics, was supposed to have a great game this past week, but the volume wasn't there. They went up with those touchdowns to Marquise Valdez-Scantling, and if it comes to it, it seems that Taysom Hill should get more involved. But what we need to remember too is that there are three capable tight ends in that room: Foster Moreau, who isn't getting volume, Juwan Johnson, and Taysom Hill. So it's not a necessity that they need to pass it to Taysom. But he is the veteran of the group of pass catchers, I would say, for the team. When you look at Jonnu Smith is a player that still gets targets, but again, limited again. In a game where they were supposed to really go hog wild, it didn't happen. And you got to question that a little bit. And Dawson Knox, same respect. If I'm looking at the schedules, who does Miami play this week? Because
I like Dawson more. So your lean's Johnny. I'll pull that for your lean's Johnny. Miami is playing against Vegas.
Yeah, I think my lean would be Smith. Yeah, I think my lean would be Smith. But also, I would monitor the Dalton Kincaid.
And mine is Knox.
Go ahead.
That's right. With Kincaid and Coleman, Knox potentially could be the number 2 target.
It could be.
Yeah, that's basically it. If Buffalo's still hurt like hell, the answer to me is Knox without even thinking. It might be Knox anyway. All righty. So, trade. Thank you, Senor, for making it very clear on the my's and the theirs. Trade my Tillman for their Ridley. Your other receivers are Kupp, Dell, Coleman, Jennings, Worthy in a 12-man PPR. I like what you're doing here. First off, I don't really like either situation. But I think that getting Ridley, given his crazy volume, is safer. So I like what you're doing because Pollard's declining, and he will continue to. Spears did not step up the way we thought he would have in Tennessee, at least the way I thought he would have in the offseason. So you're getting Tillman at pretty much his peak value, which this is Tillman's peak value right now. You ate the buy. You got to see two good things. Neither quarterback situation is strong, but given the fact that Cleveland plays in Cleveland and the weather on that lake can really destroy passing games, I'm okay with going with the volume of Ridley, knowing that he's basically their only late season toll left. And I think that that's the direction I would want to go with. So it's not a world-changing trade to me, but I don't think it's a horrible trade. What I think you might be better off doing is instead of having this stockpile of receivers, which you have, is maybe start doing some 2-for-1s or some 3-2s and try to get some of that off of your books to make your decisions a little bit easier and really try to go for some superstars. So an example of that would be instead of using Tillman for Ridley and essentially a lateral move, use Tillman and your second running back and go upgrade that position. Because putting out their Kupp, Dell, Coleman, or Jennings is going to be a really solid lineup every week. So that's what I would recommend. Going and upgrade your second running back and just be solid as can be entering into the playoff push. How would you, Bob?
Hold on 1 minute.
I think Bob would agree with that.
Yeah, hold on. Let me. I was just finishing this. Work is been a struggle. Tank.
Well, Bob's working too hard. I'll hit an easy, quick hit for you here, and then we'll go back to that one. Tank Dell or DJ Moore for the rest of the season. This is Tank Dell safely and easily by at least 35 points in a PPR league. That's not even questionable. Miko Collins coming back actually helps Tank Dell. Yeah, that's Tank Dell's even easier.
Yeah, I'm on Tank.
So Bob, right, you heard the thoughts on Ridley and Tillman
for Ridley. Otherwise, okay. So there's two ways to view this. Ridley has I believe, in PPR, the second most points over the last 3 weeks. The only one that's higher is Jamar Chase. So while I assumed that he was dead in the water 4 weeks ago, many of you did as well. Joe held the line, explained why it was great to hold on to Ridley. The volume is massive right now. I mean, it is unproportionately.
Wait. I'm very glad I said hold the line, but I thought he was going to get traded. I wasn't necessarily right about why holding the line, but I was right.
So he's getting massive volume right now, and in the NFL, volume is king. And Tillman is looking great right now too. But there's a fluctuation that might happen. Is that Ridley is I hate to say it, the safer option over Tillman, knowing that at any one point in time, there's a chance that they might take out Jameis to put back in Dorian Thompson-Robinson. I would trade for Ridley right now. I would. And I would most likely start on a weekly basis, Kupp, Jennings, and Ridley, if I'm starting 3 wide receivers from your team with Dell as an option as well.
Yeah, I'm starting Dell. There's just no way I'm not doing that. Brad, you're in a league of bad people. So 6 people in his league vetoed this trade of DJ Moore and Hunt for Brian Thomas Jr. That trade should not be vetoed, period. That's an acceptable trade. It was an acceptable trade then. It's an acceptable trade now. You're in a league of bad people. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, Brad, to this end, for everybody
coming in. Don't veto trades.
For anybody coming in and describing to us, this trade got vetoed. Yeah, I understand the viewpoints of some league members to veto it, but it's reasonable to think last week, prior to MHJ going off again, he had another bad week. You traded a player who does have volume concerns and a running back who doesn't have any volume concerns right now to a player that could have used them for MHJ. I mean, that's just absurd. I mean, this is a fair enough trade when you look at it from the perspective of volume is king. Neither MHJ or DJ Moore are getting volume. Hunt is and probably will continue to get a decent amount, knowing that, heck, the Chiefs are undefeated still, and there's no reason to rush Pacheco back. Absolutely no reason to rush Pacheco back. You'll see Pacheco with, carries and stuff, but I don't think you'll see him with a huge amount of volume. And going back to CMC, Joe, this was a discussion that we had about CMC, is that if the Niners were in a commanding lead in the division,
he wouldn't be back yet.
They might not have necessitated his return, but they weren't, so they needed to, and they did.
That's exactly it.
A lot of things to consider there.
And team players, we appreciate you all clicking like, subscribe, and also in your comments, starting them with either the QH or the DD. The DD means we're going to do a deep dive, QH for quick hitter, and we're going to be getting into our DDs in a moment here, but to hit some more quick hitters along the way until we get there. Should I trade Bowers and Monty, Andrews, Tucker Kraft, and Jonnu Smith? All are in waivers. So I love the concept of having your running.
I would come cast again.
Be Hunt and Detroit.
So
like that trade. I can't tell you I'm in love with starting Tucker Kraft every week, but I'm good with it.
Yeah, and Austin, I would. Bowers has a lot of volume. Again, Montgomery doesn't have a lot of volume, but he does have that touchdown kind of floor. I would do that trade, and I would be comfortable picking up Mark Andrews or Tucker Kraft. Mark Andrews' volume has risen recently. Lamar Jackson isn't making a lot of mistakes. So it's a high-powered offense, and to that end, Jordan Love does make a lot of mistakes, but Tucker Kraft is involved in this game plan. I think that either of them are safe, and I would tend to lean Mark Andrews, who we also thought was dead in the water after 2 or 3 weeks. I mean, sometimes it just takes these guys time, and sometimes you can't wait. So, nobody's faulting anybody for dropping Mark Andrews. It's just the time was right to move on from him at a certain point this year. I'd go out.
And I think that car crash might have been a bigger impact than they let on to believe when they were talking about it.
Honestly.
Chris, all in. I love that you're all in. Always be all in. Never go all out.
I have
Kareem Hunt. Should I trade him for Downs and Dell? I'd love getting Dell on my team. I'm not sure I want Josh Downs though, especially with Flacco showing cracks like they might have to bench him in real life because the Colts are weirdly still kind of in it. I don't like Downs and Richardson. I don't like that combination at all. I think what I would prefer, and this is just from my standpoint, is unless you need the 2 receivers, try to do a lateral move for them, which should be a tier above Tank Dell. As much as I love them, that's the reality of the situation. So that's what I would recommend if I were you, Chris. Like I said, if you need 2 receivers, you do worse than Josh Downs, I suppose, but I would rather do a straight 1-for-1 with a better return.
While I do think this is a fair trade, everything that Joe said is absolutely true, Chris, and I think most of the guys in the chat would agree to that as well. Is that you're trading out of an uncertain entity, or what you feel is an uncertain entity in Kareem Hunt. I really don't feel like it's that uncertain because they will want to keep Pacheco for the playoffs healthy. There's reason to believe that would be a reasonable plan. Josh Downs. If they end up bringing back Richardson, I don't know how they could do that at this point in time because he also doesn't give them the best chance to win. And it's just a really weird situation that the Colts are in right now. I would do it only if I planned on starting these 2 guys. If one of them is going to be a bench guy, then I don't see the necessity of doing it. And I agree with Joe that you should move, if you're going to just look for one starter, that you should try to move Hunt laterally into something else.
Something better.
there's reason to believe you could do that. Adam, pick 2, start B-Rob, Hall, and Chase Brown. That is a spicy meatball right there, Joe. So I think if B-Rob is healthy, that at least as we speak today, Adam, on Tuesday, that I think it would be reasonable to start Brian Robinson Jr.
I don't know.
We do have to look into the stats a little bit more.
That's a Thursday night game, Bob.
But yeah, and again, health is an issue, but I'm not.
It is.
As I explained earlier, Thursday night games have been really, really weird. And there's always been something that has happened in these games where one player comes out, shows out, and whatnot.
I'm going with that being Devonta Smith. If I had to put my money on one standout, I think it's going to be Devonta.
Yeah, I mean, looking at the matchup, there is, there's reason to believe that it could be a lot of Jaden Daniels doing Jaden Daniels things in this game. So, I mean, there is a question of that. But I do think that out of everything that you need to monitor the health, because he's been out for how many weeks now? Eckler has been performing satisfactory. Again, like I said before, you don't want to rush somebody back and then him get hurt again right away. Similar to some things that happened with, Mike Evans and with Nakua a little bit too. You don't really want to rush things back. So my lean would be Brian Robinson and Chase Brown today. But once I take a look a little bit more at this week's metrics, I might swing my vote to Chase Brown and Hall. Maybe.
Yeah, I'm at this point. I'm leaning Chase Brown and Hall. That the Colts defense is soft. I mean, let's just call it the way it is. And I think that the Jets might actually get back to deciding to run the ball now that it's apparent to every person in the world Rodgers doesn't want to be there anymore. So just have him hand the ball off and keep it moving. Right. Alrighty. Jesse, do I trade Allen and Lamb for A-Chain and Jennings, or do London and Allen? That's a tough one. So I don't want to get rid of Lamb.
Is that Josh Allen?
I don't.
Is that Josh Allen or Keenan Allen? Jesse.
I mean, if it's Keenan Allen, as much as I don't like London, I would do Keenan Allen and London straight up. But if it's Keenan Allen, I still don't want to get rid of Lamb. I don't want to get rid of Lamb. If it's Keenan Allen, I would do the second one. If it's Josh Allen, I want it.
Yeah, I mean, where I tend to fall on this is that I do think that Jennings is going to be. It is Josh Allen. I do think that Jennings is going to be extremely productive for the rest of the season, and there is a framework for Achane to continue to be successful over the course of the year. Although this game didn't go well, I'd try to find a different trade partner, Jesse, in this trade. I think you're giving up a little bit much with Keenan or with Josh Allen there. I think you're giving up a little bit much with him. So,
all right. So this is going to be our last quick hitter before we dive into the first DD, which is going to be Quincy's. So hitting here into our next quick hitter here, Carlos. My late first and a late second, too much for Zay. So, Carlos, here's my answer for this, and this is basically where it is that if you can win the whole thing right now, you do it. I do think that a first rounder and a second is too much personally, but if that's what it takes to win the whole thing, those championships don't come off the wall. So
yeah. No, I agree with you, Joe. If Zay is going to be the guy that moves you into a chip, I think you have to go for it this year. And all things considering, a late second, okay, whatever. But a late first is not necessarily something to scoff at. And I agree with Joe.
Well, if it's a snake league, that's the first pick of the second round.
I agree with Joe here that you need to go for the gusto. I don't know if Zay is the guy that I'd go for the Gusto with, but I
don't
think
know.
he's
But if I'm
definitely
doing a trade like that, I want
worth
AJ
owning.
Brown in return. If I'm giving my first and second, I
You
should
ain't
get
gonna
AJ
get
Brown.
him. You ain't gonna get that.
Well, it depends. If the AJ Brown guy's out of it, I might.
Yeah, I don't think
It all
so.
depends. I mean, this is the time of the year where you buy people that are out of it and you go in.
Yeah.
Even the people that are out of it still at a first round pick. You know, there's studs out there that can be bought. All right. That being said, Quincy with the first DD of the day. Lamb, Debo, Cup, Jennings, Mooney, McBride, the Rams backfield, Tracy Spears, Bigsby, Algier, Wilson, May, Tua, and I'm in first. Let the team rock or make any moves. So looking at your running back room, you got the Rams and Tracy. That's Tracy's the spot where you'd want to look at, but Tracy's starting to show himself as a dude. You do have the extra receiver. So if you're going to move one, it's going to be Mooney and Tracy for an upgrade. That being said, I'm not totally sure that I want to do that. I probably would be more comfortable moving Mooney and Spears or Mooney and Bigsby to get kind of that safe spot. You're not going to get a whole lot in return. But overall, I don't think you got a problem with this team. Like I like it.
Yeah, where I fall on that for you here, Quincy, is that your skill positions, your wide receivers and your running backs, I think are solid enough. What I would do, and this is the only thing I people, I know some people had some questions about owning, Cup, Kyron, Nakua, Debo, CMC, Jennings, stuff like that. Those questions are always going to come up. But one of the things that I would want to suggest to you potentially is to if you're in a league that you can, like, obviously you're starting a wide receiver in your flex right now because Spears and Bigsby are not worth doing that. If I could really, and I'm okay with rolling out Kyron and Tracy as my two starting running backs, and then, Lamb, Debo, Cup, Jennings, or Mooney in my flex. I think you are solid where you're at. If I wanted to improve anything, because I see that you have Drake May and Tua and what looks like potentially Russell Wilson at quarterback there.
I'm assuming that's who that is.
One of the things that I think that I might try to consider is potentially moving Lamb. And if you're concerned, now I don't think you have to move him. I just want to clear that up right now. I don't think you have to move him. But if you're going to move off of any players in this group of players, the two players that I think have really high value right now from a name standpoint as well would be Lamb and Cup. But I don't want to move Cup. So Lamb would be the guy that I would try to move, or Debo, because you have two wide receivers from San Francisco, and maybe try to get a really, really strong flex play, because I think you can rock Debo, Cup, Jennings, or Mooney as your wide receiver 1 through 3. But I think that you could really make a strong case to put a running back in your flex.
So you're saying do something like Jennings and Spears and turn that into like what? Like a Monty, a Devontae? What are you thinking?
I don't even think you could do that. I think it has to be like a Lamb or a Debo at this point in the season. And you can even trade with a similar contender, right? Like I said.
Yeah, I'm okay with Jennings or Debo in the trade. One of the Niners.
I don't think you have to do it. But if you were going to consider doing anything, Quincy, maybe target yourself, maybe even go after other contenders and be like, hey, I see that maybe you could use another wide receiver. I'm willing to move off Debo. Are you willing to get into a running back? I think that maybe a target for you could be Achane. You have the player capital to go out and get Achane, who as a receiving back plus an actual good running back on this team gives you a lot of upwards potential in that back end flex play. If you have one flex, if you have two flexes, it really improves it mightily, because the difference right now from Lamb to Mooney in terms of a point for point basis is probably not going to be a high variability right now at this point in the season, knowing the quarterbacks that are going to be throwing him the ball. The volume will be there, but like Joe said, I'm not willing to sell Lamb for scraps, but if I can move Lamb to a person that needs a wide receiver and can get back a running back 2, running back 1 value still, that would be kind of what I would try. And Debo could definitely move you into a solid running back 2 right now. And I think it's really pick your poison on which running backs you would want to grab there at that point in time. Taking a look at the schedule, who do you feel has the best potential to succeed? Maybe you want to buy into Monty, knowing that the touchdowns are going to be there. Maybe you want
the Cook guy's a little bit down.
Maybe you want to try to move into Josh Jacobs, knowing that he does have a little bit of uncertainty in terms of game script. But your wide receiver,
and also remember that a big part of the trades is knowing the person you're going to be trading with, and really just catering it to them, because that's how you can get something that might not look like a materially fair trade through. Is, you're just giving them something that tickles their fancy, even if they're especially when they're completely wrong about what they're into. That's just how you get trades through. Like, quite frankly, Bob gets fleeced any single time he's offered Laporta, because he will give his whole soul for Laporta, and that's what always happens. So you got to know this about your people and just go into it.
I didn't this time. So, all right, let's.
So, guys, you saw a little bit there about how the DDs work. Obviously, the deep dives we give greater in depth. Make sure you start your questions with either DD or quick hitter so we know what's next. Adam, you will be the next deep dive when we get to it. In the meantime, guys, make sure you guys always click like and subscribe. We love how you're all coming in with us and being part of the party. Steve, you are the next quick hitter, and you are up right now.
So the Dak
injury forced me into this trade.
All right.
Go for it, Bob.
Holidays in the Maldives. Nice, Steve. I like that. I gave Adams, Jones, Debo, Laporta for Allen, Jacobs, McBride, Shakir, PPR. Steve, I see you put a deep dive there as well. I see where you feel like you might have been forced into doing this, but I don't think that you necessarily overpaid. One of the things about Josh Allen, I was looking at the stats, is he's not getting that same amount of rushing touchdowns that he was getting last year. I think he's sitting at 4, which is about that same framework of Bo Nix and right around where Kyler Murray is. So that value has not necessarily improved yet. He's still had a lot of decently solid weeks. He's had some really down weeks, and we've talked about that on the show as well, that he was a candidate that if you want to trade him for Jaden Daniels and all this other stuff, that you could have done that. But what I see here, from a strictly speaking standpoint, Laporta and McBride is a push for me. Laporta feels like it's going to be coming on. McBride does have guaranteed volume in a decently lowish passing offense.
And
I'm okay with that. It's a push.
Jacobs and Jones feels like a push to me too.
Jacobs and Jones with the offensive line of Minnesota being a little bit problematic right now. Jones is still solid, but again, both of those running backs can be scripted out of games given the situations. Then my only piece, then the pieces are Adams, Debo, and Shakir. I do think you downgraded Debo and Shakir, and you had to move Adams, but Allen was the right call.
Yeah, and he now has a stack. I'm okay with this overall.
Allen was the right call.
I get that you would not have. I understand that you wouldn't have wanted to do this without Dak, but given the force to step up or step off, I think you did pretty decent. Given everything that you had there. Yeah. All right, Adam, the Joku or the Hawk for the rest of the season. Bob might give you a different answer on this, but I'm Hawk all day, every day. Now that he's back and healthy, give me the Hawk.
Yeah, I'm on Hawk. And the one reason that I am on Hawk is that Sam Darnold and Minnesota in general has been using their tight ends all year. And in a game where Oliver got decent, receptions, Hawk did too. And I got to say, we said this last week, and it just depends on how much time it's going to take Hawk to get up to speed with this offense. Well, it seems like he's up to speed now. And, and not looking at the matchups on the slate, but looking at the player and the team, it's reasonable to think that Hawk will be put into better opportunities, even with the offensive line being banged up and injured and stuff. Be put into better opportunities. I think that both have good projections over the course of the year with the quarterback that they have, but I slightly lean Hawk a little bit more.
Carlos, I appreciate your update. So you're not doing a snake draft then.
Yeah,
you're talking about
that's
giving
what I
away
said.
1-9 and 2-10 for Zay. Still seems like too much.
I don't think it is. Freezy, 10-man PPR trade. Derrick Henry for Achane and Chuba Hubbard. The other running backs are James Conner, Brian Robinson, and Chase Brown. Freezy, on this show, we will never advocate against Derrick Henry.
No.
But
get King Henry.
But the pieces that are on the other side are two top-notch pieces right now. And Hubbard, with the Brooks situation, yeah, they'll probably bring Brooks out, but they just signed Hubbard to a contract, which was really weird when you have this rookie running back waiting in the wings. But they're obviously seeing his performance. He's one of the top backs right now in terms of yardage. He's also one of the top backs in terms of touchdowns right now. But if you are trading away Derrick Henry, I wouldn't trade away Derrick Henry. I get the trepidation that you would have with saying, oh, where's the volume? Is the volume going to keep coming? Yeah, it's going to keep coming. For Achane and Hubbard,
Carolina is so stupid.
I wouldn't.
So Bob, you just said that. I didn't realize this just happened 9 hours ago. First off, you don't negotiate with players during the season. Second, the hell are you doing a 4-year deal? Carolina is so stupid. They are trying to be Cleveland of the South. Like, wow.
I'm telling you.
That's the first I heard of that. You guys just saw my reaction to that contract live. That is so stupid.
But for your team, you do have I like Chase Brown moving forward. Joe will tell you many reasons why Chase Brown, you could be worried about him. James Conner,
I like his depth. I don't think he needs a pickup, unless I'm misreading this. I don't think he needs to pick up 2 players.
Crazy. I'm okay with you rolling out Derrick Henry and James Conner or Derrick Henry and Chase Brown on a week-to-week basis. I don't think you need to do this trade.
I don't think it helps your team. I think it ends up giving you an extra piece on the back end that you're just benching, which you might as well be cutting.
And for everybody joining the chat, we see all of the questions. We will get to all of them in due time as we go down our list. So please stick around. If you want us to quick hit it, just put a QH in front. Deep dive to give a little bit more, put a DD in front. So I see all the questions that just came in, and we'll get to everything. So Josh,
I own a little bit on the quick hitters. We're half an hour behind on quick hitters. So
I own Bijan, Achane, and Tracy. I send out Pollard and Taysom for McBride or Pollard for Evans. I want Evans.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
There are many reasons. Baker Mayfield is passing the ball at one of the highest clips in the league right now, outside of Geno Smith. Their defense can't stop anybody. So they are going to continue to pass the ball. You can look at all the metrics.
It's like a Cincinnati light situation. They just don't have a good of the offense as Cincinnati.
You can point at all the metrics you want, but Evans,
that'd be a bad beer.
Evans, when he's healthy, is one of the best wide receivers in the game. And they need him to be healthy for the stretch run in order to make some moves towards the playoff hunt. I am totally okay moving Pollard into Evans. If you wanted a tight end, that deal is okay as well, but I would rather have Mike Evans.
Oh,
Steve, rank in terms of points in the playoffs. Lamb, Neighbors, Harrison, Hill, Collins. Well, Malik Neighbors has some great matchups coming up down the pipeline, Steve. So if it were me, I would want to rank him number one, but the quarterback situation is pretty terrible.
Yeah.
Coming down for the Cardinals, how do you feel about MHJ?
My quick gut reaction to this is this. It's going to be Collins, Lamb, Neighbors, Harrison Hill. Miami in the cold does nothing, especially when they have nothing to play for. So I don't like Harrison there, or I don't like Hill, that Tyreek there. But I love Collins and Lamb. I mean, I think Lamb just got a bigger green light now that everything's out. I mean, I know one of our first questions of the day was trade Dado or not. And I said keep Rico because you're going to get guaranteed volume. But Lamb, I know, is getting the ball like crazy and can score. Neighbors gets the ball like crazy, but no guarantee of scoring.
So here's my thing about Nico. So I would, and I hate this for myself. I really do. I would rank this as Harrison, Neighbors, Collins, Lamb, Hill. And here's my reasoning behind it real quick, Steve.
So mean on my boy.
Harrison, the playoff schedule looks to be a pretty good, even in the pipeline here. I'm a little bit worried about the Seahawks game because the Seahawks do kind of keep it in front of them a little bit. But Vikings, Seahawks, Patriots, Panthers, Rams down the pipeline. If you finish your playoffs in week 17, that's a good enough slate. Houston, what I'm nervous about isn't week 17. I'm not nervous about week 17 because that's the Ravens. What I am nervous about is if you have a week 14 game, and that's the Dolphins. The Dolphins secondary, we saw it last night. It will allow certain wide receivers to produce, but it doesn't break very often for touchdowns. So while I can see Nico putting up a good amount of targets and receptions in that game, I'm a little bit nervous and leery with the way that CJ Stroud has been playing.
See, I'm actually bigger on Collins, and now we're getting out of quick hit territory, but I want to hit it anyway. I'm bigger on Collins after how they imploded last week on Sunday.
Should I drop Taysom Hill for Dawson Knox?
I would.
I would consider it, especially keeping an eye on the Dalton Kincaid injury.
And the whole thing with Taysom Hill is that I don't think you're going to get that gadget stuff with the new coaching staff, which really diminishes the value of Taysom Hill.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. In reference to my previous question, my running backs are Bijan, Chase Brown, Braylon, Corum, Mason, right, Vidal, and Garendo. Joe, that was trading Tillman for Ridley. Yeah, I'd still do it.
Yeah.
I'd still do it, senor. Absolutely. Jesse, if I drop Demarcus Robinson out of these guys, who do I go
for?
No,
that's not what I was saying. I was saying pair Tillman with one of these guys to upgrade them is what I was saying to answer the question, right? Yeah. And I would pair it with Chase Brown to upgrade Chase Brown. That's how I would do that.
That's fair. If I drop Demarcus Robinson out of these guys, who do I go for? It's Ridley. The volume is there.
I'm going to argue for Mike Williams.
The volume is there for Ridley. I could argue for all three of these guys, Jesse, and we can deep dive this at another time. But I would rank that Ridley, Williams, and MVS, all of them, I think, have roles. It just depends upon your risk, the risk that you want to take within that.
Listen, I might be local, but I saw that ball look like Metcalf. I think we're going to get a lot of that.
Better rest of season running back stash. Dobbins, Estime, or Benson, full PPR. I don't consider Dobbins a stash. Okay, I really don't consider Dobbins a stash.
But Dobbins is the best of that group by a mile.
Dobbins is the best of that bunch. What I will say is that I do like Benson. And I really like Benson not because of the player he is, but because of the situation that it is. So the Cardinals run at a really high clip in the league. And that can't be ignored. And we've seen 2 weeks now where Benson has been pretty involved in the offense as the game has gone on. Whether that's, and they have proven to themselves that they will run no matter if they are winning or losing. Okay? It is very clear. So while I love Audric Estime, and many creators also love Audric Estime, I think it's safe to say that Benson's role, if Connor were to go down, is pretty clear.
It's also much better.
Estime's role, he will have a role. He's getting more carries, but you all, like, with the same refrain to Benson, you have a quarterback that is capable of rushing, but Bo Nix feels like he's stolen more touchdowns from his running backs than Kyler Murray, because Kyler Murray ran one for like 50 yards, right? So I still think Dobbins is a great play. I'm not really afraid of Gus Edwards, because we saw with Gus Edwards, there's still going to be involvement for Dobbins. If I were to choose between Estime and Benson, it would be Benson, but it's close, but I like the situation of Benson better. Timon, not a question, just a comment. I have Jane Daniels, B-Rob, Mixon, Fairbairn, and Broncos D for week 14. For week 14 bye. Wish me luck. I'm first in clinched playoffs this week. I'm 2 wins away from clinching the bye. That is what we're looking for, Tim.
That's right. And you just
love
accept the fact you're losing week 14, man. That's fine.
We love to see the buys. We love to see people realizing that buy, you're losing it. You've already clinched. It's okay.
That's life.
Juan, I traded DJ Moore for Ramondre Stevenson. I like that. I still got Ken Walker, Kyron, and Breece Hall. My wide receivers are Jefferson, Mooney, Downs, Myers, Madison, ETN on my bench. Do I trade Stevenson for a receiver? I think you could. I think you absolutely could. But I don't know what value you can get, because people are just as low on Ramondre as they are on DJ Moore. Okay?
Yeah.
So I think right now, until you get a couple, because Drake May looks good as the quarterback here for the Patriots, and they're eventually going to be in better situations. Maybe not this year particularly, but eventually you've got to think. The Rams game, the Rams don't, I know what we saw in the game yesterday, but over the last several weeks, they have been a team that you've been able to run on. The Dolphins, again, Kyron ran on them. The Colts, they can be run on. The Cardinals, they can be run on. The Bills, they can be run on. Okay? So Stevenson actually is a very big brain move to hold.
Well, here's the second part of this that he wrote in 2 texts. He's getting offered Debo and Waddle for Walker. So we look at that and go, you're getting Walker out of your starting rotation here. I'm doing that. That really upgrades your receiving room.
And I'm holding
now, is
Ramondre.
Stevenson giving you the best playoff run? No. But Ramondre's now your third running back, and that's okay. So, Juan, all in answering your questions, I'm doing the trade. I'm liking where your team's at, and now you guys sit on Ramondre. I like where you're doing with everything.
Yeah, and
traded Breece Hall and Harrison Jr. Oh,
just as an aside,
did I get Comcasted again, Bob?
No, just as an aside to Juan there. I like Ken Walker, but what I don't like about Ken Walker is the volume that he's getting on the ground. I'm not a fan of that. He's still getting some receptions, but I'm okay with moving on from him.
You're one Geno Smith smack away from that changing, though.
Yeah, it's true. It's absolutely true. He has been turning the ball over a lot. So, I mean, he has 10 interceptions so far this year, 3 last week. I need a running back depth for the buy. I traded Breece and MHJ for K9 and Walker. What do I think? Well, while I don't love it, it's utilitarian in a big way. White is still getting involved in this offense since Godwin went down. I don't know how that will be once Mike Evans comes back. So I would take that into consideration. And what I said about K9 earlier, it's still true. I'm not Seattle, at least this week, has a really poor matchup in terms of running backs. But again, where the value is in Ken Walker is in his receiving skills. And Breece has been just as frustrating to own as Ken Walker. You needed an extra back. I think it's going to be fine in the long haul because, again, MHJ is not super reliable, but he's one of those players. But even though he's not reliable, you still are almost forced to start him unless you own like the Darnell Mooneys of the world as well. So I don't think it's bad, but I would I would consider anybody out there that's trading for a Tampa Bay running back this week. I would be a little bit concerned when Mike Evans come back on how that volume will look.
I think you overpaid, Don. I'm just going to flat out say it. Bob's using big words like utilitarian to make you feel happy. You overpaid, dude.
Adam, should I trade Love for Purdy? I need a win this week. Yeah, I would consider it. And the reason I would consider it is it's a great matchup for Brock Purdy. Incredible
matchup. You
matchup.
get the matchup win. Overall, we have them pretty close for the rest of the season, but you get the matchup win for today. Helps you win the day, and that's what you need. So that's what you got to do.
I would do that. Don, so
we just answered that one.
Yeah, we got you on that one. Yeah, two-man flex. James Cook, Monty, Devonta, and
this one's hard.
Let me look at a couple things.
Definitely going Monty. I cannot take Monty out of my lineups. Like Detroit is just I am so high on Detroit right now. But like I literally had to talk myself out of twice already to not do Detroit Steelers Super Bowl. Like I want to hit that button so hard. And it's not because I'm worried about the Steelers. I'm just the NFC is messed up. But I'm going Monty. I'm going Monty all day there. To me, it comes down to the next matchup. So we got Minnesota playing against Tennessee. They should basically be able to do whatever they want. We have Tennessee projected to be one of the better scoring teams this week. Detroit's the highest scoring team of the week, by the way. Just put that out there. So that's no reason I'm big on Monty. So I like that they're going to be above it. Buffalo is going to be pretty much mid, and Philly is Thursday night, so I'm a little bit scared of that. But that being said, I'm still going with Devonta. I'm going with Devontae Smith and Monty because I'm biased. This is bias coming out. I like receivers more than tight ends. So that's going to be my fundamental answer. But Hawk would be my third.
Yeah, I'm definitely on Monty. He gives you the best chance for a touchdown out of this grouping of players. The line is good. There's going to be a decent amount of points scored by Detroit in that game. And there's going to be a good chance that they'll be running out the clock at some point in time. When it comes to James Cook, it's going to be a little bit hard to trust Buffalo this week. I understand how teams have performed against Kansas City in the past, and it's going to have the involvement for Cook is going to have to look a little bit different. But I would agree with Joe that right now, as we sit on Tuesday, I would lean Monty and Devonta Smith. But I do understand how Cook has played over the last several weeks, and I am okay with James Cook as well.
How was that not the Sunday night game, by the way? They said last night they flexed in Cincinnati. Why do you not flex in Buffalo, Kansas City? What are you doing?
Marty, trade Garrett Wilson and McBride for A.J. Brown. I have DK and Higgins and Otten, and my running backs are stacked. I got Kyron, JT Jacobs, and Brees. Love that. It's a one flex league.
100% doing that. Now we got to get out of Higgins, but step one done. I like that getting A.J. Brown on that lineup.
Yeah.
I love it.
I think this is solid, especially with Otten. Again, with Mike Evans coming back, Otten's volume will go down just a little bit. But my question to you is you've got 4 running backs here. You can only flex one of them. I get why you're saving them all, but I would consider, you don't need to really upgrade if you're going DK and AJ, but you do have some room for improvement. But I love it. I love
you go Higgins and Brees and get a home run. I'd do that.
This is Purdy this week, Lipsy. This is Purdy this week, and it's not really categorically close.
Yeah. Again, rest of the season it is close, but this is a Purdy week for sure.
Thoughts on Amari Cooper rest of the season.
Boo that man.
We were excited to a degree a couple weeks ago with the trade. We did suggest that it would be a good buy low if you could buy him low enough, but also, he's been hurt, and
he's been hurt during the time that he had to go make his hay. The thing with Amari Cooper, he's never been good in cold temperatures ever. So the fact that we're looking here and he basically lost his window of warmth. Oh, that should be that should be a book. The window of warmth. Dude, I just gave someone a 14-year-old girl book right there. The window of warmth. Anyway, the fact that Amari Cooper missed that, he is going to be essentially useless as things gets cold. But that's where I look at there. If Higgins and Amari don't play, who should I flex out of the group of Rome, Dobbs, Douglas? I'm going Dobbs and don't really need to think much more on that one.
Yeah, there is definitely a reason to believe that Dobbs will be an okay play. I'll have to look a little bit more with how this Chicago defense has performed over the last several weeks. Rome, as I said yesterday, Nihil, is not trustworthy enough to throw into a lineup right now. Dobbs for that, and Douglas, while getting volume, it's nice, right? The volume is nice, but the Patriots line is just struggling, and so the volume that you're getting probably isn't going to be like super, super valuable. I think out of these guys, Dobbs probably gets a touchdown in there. But I'm not expecting big things from any of these players. So hopefully Higgins or Amari does play, because I'd rather start either of those over either of these guys. But I would lean Dobbs right now as well.
So we're going to go back into our next deep dive here. Remember, guys, if you're first time here being the team players at Local Football Flavor, start your comments off with quick hitter, which is QH or DD. This is how we give time to the longer questions.
Thanks,
people
Juan.
Stick
Thanks,
around
Marty.
a little bit longer. We will answer everyone over the course of the day. The DDs are out of order, so we give them a little bit more time. Also, if you haven't yet, click that like and subscribe button. A lot of you guys watching haven't clicked like yet. How about you change that up? That'd be pretty cool. DD, 12-man, full PPR, Hurts, Hall, Chase, B-Rob, Tracy, DK, London, Evans, Puka, and Hawk and Njoku. That's a lot of tight end love there, man. Just traded Brian Thomas Jr. and Jennings and Kincaid for the Hawk and Evans. You think this trade's going to win it for me? I love getting Evans on this team. I mean, there's no way around that. So the only thing I'm really going to tell you that I want to upgrade more is combine Chase Brown and London and upgrade that receiver too. But that being said, or running back too. But that being said, it's not a giant necessity. I just think it pushes you dramatically over the top. That would be the only real recommendation I got for you, Adam.
Adam, you have an incredible team, and I get your, the question of asking B-Rob, Hall, Chase Brown. And I think that as you go into the rest of this season, BTJ and Jennings, realistically, over Puka, London, and DK when all healthy, probably weren't skating into your starting lineup, okay? You traded Tillman into Tracy, which is phenomenal.
Which is great.
We saw someone floating the opposite direction too, with potentially trading Tracy for Tillman and things like that. So as I look at your team today, sitting here, you have made your team into a team that your questions are going to be really high-end start-sit questions. You're not going to be thinking about those back-end start-sit questions. You're thinking about plus players in matchups. So moving forward, I love this team. I think the trade is a win. I still love Jennings, but you're getting out of BTJ, who I loved a couple weeks ago and was recommending going into, but the situation changed. Kincaid, similarly, I didn't really like him all year. He's gotten hurt, so it is what it is. And Jennings is a high-end value right now. Evans is down, but you're at a point where if DK is healthy, you're solid, especially if you only need to start 2 wide receivers. If you need to start 3, you got to hope Evans and DK come back and they're super healthy. I don't expect like a great game when they first come back, but again, Puka had a great game when he first came back. So it is all dependent on the player, the personnel, and the game situation. But what I'm communicating, and this is what happens in like 8-man leagues that Joe and I are in, is that when you have these high-end profile decisions, the discrepancy in points is going to be
12-man. So he's already basically won. like Alabama showing up against SMU.
But what I was saying, Joe, is that the discrepancy in points on a week-to-week basis, and you see it in our league as well, where, my decision of, do I flex Monty, Hunt, or Dobbins? And we have 2 flexes and 2 running back position. I'm always starting my Saquon and Bijan because it was an auction league. Yeah. But then I'm coming down to these flex decisions, and it's either like a 0.0 to 5 point differential between guys on a week-to-week basis. There's all high-end production.
That's exactly it.
Your question for yourself now is that when you go into the next couple of weeks, Adam, you're going to be looking at high production. 3 of your guys have injury, like 4 of your guys have like injury tags attached to them at various points in time this year in that wide receiver room. But you now are going to be sitting here making these high-end start sit decisions. And when you do that, what I want you to look at is volume. What I want you to look at is quarterback play. And what I want you to look at is making sure that, you're not as nervous if they're going up against a shadow cornerback, that you're not that nervous to play certain guys, because production is production and it can happen when we least expect it. And I'm just speaking of this because I've experienced it before. When you miss on one of these guys, it hurts even more because the other guy is equally as likely to be productive. It's not like we're talking about 14 points versus 7. This is more like 12 versus 20. And It feels like a bigger monumental difference because it is. So I like where you're at. I think it's solid, but you're just going to have to really handle those start sit questions a little bit more with caution over the next several weeks, especially considering the injuries.
Carlo, back into our quick hits. Someone's offering me Breece Hall and Pickens for CMC. You need the receiver and the running. I think I'm doing that. I think I'm taking Pickens and Hall for CMC.
Yeah, Carlo, it's reasonable to think that this is a really good opportunity. Joe was explaining that Pickens is probably at his highest value right now. And the only way for Pickens to go is to trend down, but that doesn't mean that he's not going to continue to return production.
Yes and no. He's at his highest value in terms of his usage, but he's also had the most points taken away from him in penalties.
Right, that's what I said.
The two could balance themselves
out. The production, I think, is still going to be there, right?
Yeah. And but it's not going to get higher.
It's not going to get higher. It's going to probably just stay where it's at or just get a little bit lower.
Yeah. So if he stays as a 14-point player, I'm okay with that.
Yeah. And same with Breece. Breece is a frustrating own, but you're maximizing your value. And at this current at this current state of the game, to still be able to capture someone with the potential of Breece plus Pickens for CMC is pretty good. But the question goes with Carlo is that they've shown that they're just going to run CMC a lot. None of the other running backs in the running back room have, when he came back this past week, we thought that maybe it'd be like a 70-30, 60-40, 80-20 split, and it was not. It was
it's still his first week back.
Not.
I do think CMC is going to produce more as the year goes on, but I think you're getting a good enough return.
Well, that's what I was saying. What I was saying is that they've pushed Mason and Garendo now basically to the sidelines permanently. And so what I'm looking at here is this the value you want to take, right? Because you could wait another week. You could roll out, depending on what you're feeling right now, you could roll out another week and CMC might have more value next week.
But if you need a receiver this week and you need it here, this is a fair trade that's worth doing.
It's fair. But I would lean that I would rather keep CMC there. We already answered that question, Joe. Marty, we already answered that question. We would definitely go after and get A.J. Brown. We love A.J. Brown. But again, the Eagles are not passing as much as some other teams. Since Pacheco is coming back, is it worth grabbing him off of IR and dropping Brooks? Sure.
I'd rather have Pacheco than Brooks.
Sure. I would rather have the running back on the better team, but I will say to you what I've been saying over the course of the last several weeks, and I might be wrong, but it would be irresponsible to put in a young player recovering from this type of injury back into a game or back into the season when you're already undefeated. I mean, I would still like
they're going to sell Pacheco. The other part is there's no guarantee Brooks is going to produce, though. Again, you saw my live reaction about half an hour about how stupid they are giving him that contract. But teams also don't lie. There's a chance Brooks is further away than they think. And that's why they just gave him the $16 million guaranteed. Diving into the contract a little bit, it basically looks like it's a 2-year deal with some fluff at the end, which to me says Brooks ain't playing this year at any type of capacity. They gave Hubbard the money for this year and next year.
I think you should go out and get Pacheco.
Yes.
Yeah. If I can go out and get Joe Mixon right now for CeeDee Lamb or something else, yeah.
Mixon's the one he likes more than K9. I like Lamb more. So that's just a bias. But that's just the way it is.
It is a bias, but volume isn't really biased. I mean, it is.
CeeDee Lamb's going to get a gajillion targets. He still is getting targets.
Fighting that. I'm not fighting the gajillion targets, but what I'm nervous about for CeeDee Lamb is that the volume will be there, as I've said about Wan'Dale Robinson, and I'm not comparing the two from a skill standpoint. But what I'm saying is the volume will still be there, so I am okay holding him. But if I can move into better volume, which is Joe Mixon, I would. It's the same reasoning behind Wan'Dale Robinson. The volume is there, but the touchdowns aren't. Are the touchdowns going to be
Lamb can break it, though, and that's why I'm on Lamb.
He can, but they know he's the only guy on the team now.
He's been the only guy on the team all year.
They know that there's inefficient passing. I mean, like, I don't know.
So do we drop? So Nick, good question here. Do we drop Ferguson for Taysom Hill? I'm not. I get that Ferguson has been a giant disappointment, one of the big problems in Dallas, one of many. But I don't think Taysom Hill is going to give you any value with the new coaching staff down there.
Yeah, I mean, I if I'm dropping Ferguson, it has to be for somebody better than Taysom Hill.
That's right.
Ryan,
would you trade Chase, Devontae Smith, and Walker for Kamara, Lamb, and Pickens? Ooh, now we're talking. I don't want to trade Jamar Chase under any circumstances, though. So that's a hard no for me. I think that Smith and Pickens are basically a push. Chase is obviously higher up than Lamb, and I'm not big on Kamara moving forward. So, Ryan, my answer is I'm only doing this if I'm the side with Jamar Chase.
I'm keeping Jamar.
The
schedule is going to get harder, but they've proven that they're just going to keep passing the ball. They have they will run the ball with Chase Brown, but they'll keep passing it to Jamar. I am okay keeping Jamar on there, Ryan. I really am. Nick, who am I starting this week between Dobbins and Pollard? Right now on Tuesday, my lean is Dobbins.
Cincinnati can't stop the run, dude.
But we can get into it more. My lean is still Dobbins, but I can understand your frustration or your trepidation with a guy like Gus Edwards being there, who's almost guaranteed 40, 50 yards and a plunk-it-in kind of touchdown.
Cincinnati can't stop the run.
So that's kind of where we're at on that. George, should I trade Gibbs for Kyron? I have Barkley also.
I want to keep Gibbs.
I'm okay moving into a guy like Kyron, but also I would want to caution you that he has become and he has continued to be a very big plotter. Okay. Mm-hmm. And it is very much, like I said, volume-based running. And so Gibbs is the more explosive of the two players. I'm okay sitting on Gibbs and using that explosiveness. I know it didn't really turn out last week. But again, the explosiveness is there. The metrics are there to say that is going to be fine. But what I will say is that Kyron does have some really nice games in week 13, 14, and 16. And that by that point, we're not really 1,000% sure sitting here today what the Lions will continue to do, but we know that Dan Campbell won't give up. So
yeah, he also knows they're playing. They're playing until through week 17 for sure. He's like him 2 weeks off.
So in this question, I'm on Bo Nix right now. Without giving you too much information,
That's a weird answer.
I'm on Bo Nix right now, and you know that I love Jordan Love, George. You've been with us since the beginning. You know I love Jordan Love, but I'm on Bo Nix this week.
Dude, Green Bay's going to walk in there and destroy Chicago.
I could see that happening, but I'm on Bo Nix. Start the Broncos, Texans, or Packers defense this week.
So that's the group we have to choose from. Okay.
I think I'd be starting the Texans defense because they've been creating a lot of pressure, and they play the Cowboys. The Cowboys.
Yeah, Houston's one of our Houston's our second defense overall out of the choice. So yeah, Houston for sure.
7-3, Nick. I love 7-3 for you. That is a really good record to have right now, especially with all of the injuries in this climate that we're dealing with. What caliber of running back can I get for Dobbins and Bucky or Dobbins and Tracy? What I'm going to say to you.
First off, you normally get a better return with two different positions. So a receiver and a back tends to give you a better return than two of the same position, just as a starting point. But Bob, you answered the question. I just wanted to throw that out.
No, I mean, right now, I don't honestly think that you could trade these two running backs to move into a better running back situation right now because there isn't many. Okay.
That's true.
All of the top dogs are top dogs. And the only running backs that people are waffling right now on are your James Cookses, are your Ken Walkers, are your Breece Halls, and potentially a Chase Brown CMC discussion with Tony Pollard. And all of those guys, if I'm going out there today, maybe you think about trading Dobbins into Chase Brown. Yes, they have Khalil Herbert there. Yes, there's a chance they go out and get another running back. I think they just worked out Leonard Fournette. I don't know why, but you look at it and you say, why not? You look at it and say, Dobbins into Chase Brown, the situations, Dobbins is on a run-heavy team. Chase Brown is on a more explosive team. So the question is, would somebody want to do that with Gus Edwards coming back? But honestly, looking at what you could get, you're basically sitting there and playing that discussion for yourself and saying, okay, do I want to move into B-Rob? Okay. Do I want to move into Jacobs? Does he get me more points than Dobbins and Tracy? Maybe not. Swift, maybe not. Monty, maybe. But I don't think you'd want to move those guys into any of them right now. I don't think this is what you want to do. You're gonna have to package them with a receiver to get an upgrade there. The double running back combos there. But if you looking at which one would I rather do, I want to keep Tracy on my team. So I would do Dobbins and a receiver. Or if you're doing one of these two combos, it would be Dobbins and Bucky. And Ryan, Chase. We're keeping the side that has Chase. Keeping the side that has Chase, Ryan. Jay, which QB to start this week? Stroud, Herbert, Russ. How do you feel on that, Joe?
So Russell Wilson has been scoring a lot of points, much more than people expected as a starter. So there's a strong inclination to go there, except for the fact that they're playing the Ravens. For some reason, it doesn't matter what they do in the other 15 games of the year. When these two teams play each other, they don't score, and they end every game by a field goal, and it's going to be something stupid like 17-14, because that's how these two coaches always play this game, even when both of them have had Hall of Fame quarterbacks and receivers. It might be a little bit of a stretch there for Baltimore receiver, but regardless, the point being that's what they always do. So if it wasn't the Ravens, it'd be Russ. That being said, I don't think Houston's going to get embarrassed 2 weeks in a row. With Miko Collins coming back and Dallas's defense being on the field constantly, I think the answer is going to be Stroud big time. I think they're going to blow them out.
My lean today, Jay, on Tuesday is Russ, then Herbie, then Stroud. I feel like that Dallas game, at least right now, and this is just a feeling, not based on the stats or anything. It just feels like a trap from an offensive standpoint. I think Stroud could definitely have a great game. I think he could go for 225, 2 or 3 touchdowns. I think that all of these quarterbacks will have a ceiling of like 250, and their ceiling as well is 3 touchdowns. I don't think you're going to get like a super massive performance. So you just have to pick the one that's going to get you the 3 touchdowns. And with the way that the Ravens have been playing defense, I think it's going to be Russell Wilson. Rumpel, just wanted to say my league sucks. I've had Chase Brown on the bench all season, and no one wants to trade.
I can't help you with that, Rumpel.
It happens. And Ryan, keep Chase, man. Keep Chase.
I mean, get new friends. I don't know what to tell you, man.
Especially if it's Jamar. Steve, which running backs would you be offering for Tyreek for PPR, focusing on the playoffs? I wouldn't be offering anything for Tyreek right now. We were asked this question, and Steve, you've been part of this discussion as well. If you would have asked us this question, and people did 3-4 weeks ago, we were okay moving into Tyreek, knowing that Tua would be coming back. But Tyreek has also been dealing with a wrist injury, which wasn't revealed until, I believe, this past week. And it wasn't even revealed by a media outlet that's reliable. It was revealed by some random guy on Twitter. Then it was confirmed by media that is official. So with the situation that we have here,
which that's shady as hell, by the way, the Miami's intentionally trying to hold back information. I mean, Miami is a shady organization. They just are.
I said it to you a couple years ago, man.
I know. I've never fought that. Can't wait for them all to get fired.
If I'm making a playoff push, I'm not grabbing Tyreek Hill. And I just want to bring up why for a moment is 49ers, Browns, Texans. While on paper the Texans and the Browns do give up a high ADOT in terms of passing, they're not giving up that, like, the passing yards that they are giving up. It's also like middle of the pack to best in the league. So I am cautiously optimistic for the Dolphins, but I'm also not excited for those matchups going into the playoffs for the Dolphins. So I'm not picking up Tyreek right now. Nick, is Bijan, Dobbins, Pollard, and Tracy okay running backs the rest of the season? I'd be moving on Pollard, but I think you're fine, especially with Tracy there. Tyrone has really come out of the woodwork. He looks like a great addition to this team, makes this team a lot better than the sum of its parts. I think it's fine. In terms of this week,
it's a hard one for me.
Yeah, in terms of this week, like I said, they're not passing the ball a lot in Philadelphia. And there's a good chance that Houston will not have to pass the ball a lot to beat Dallas. So my initial lean is to go with the player that's in the divisional matchup, which has a better chance to be a better scoring game, and that would be Devonta Smith.
I have no doubt that on paper the Thursday night game should be much better, but I tend to go against Thursday when you have 2 equals looking at it.
Yeah,
that's a very hard call. Quite frankly, I want to find a way to get both in my lineup.
Yeah, I would try to do that as well. Nihil,
thank you guys. Thank you for the love. Thank you,
Marty. We appreciate the love, and we appreciate everybody coming in and joining us today.
Thanks for subscribe as well. You guys are the best.
Do I flex Dobbs or Noah Brown? Commanders versus Eagles has a high over-under. That's the other reason to go with them. Maybe he could get in the end zone. I was just going through this as well. Where's my numbers here?
Yeah, it's Dobbs. He's the legitimate number 2 on the Packers versus the back burner guy on the Commanders. That one's, I understand that there's a high over under, and that's how a lot of math gets driven. That's how it should be driven. I get that. That being said, I'm going to be on Dobbs. Like I said, I think there's a chance he's actually more talented than Reed. But that's the one that I want out of Green Bay. Yeah, we are going to disagree about that. We might disagree about that forever. I really like Dobbs.
I know you do.
You've
liked him for a couple weeks now.
Like
the only thing that I am moderately concerned about, again, with Green Bay in general, is the risk of turnovers against the Bears. Now, I don't think the Bears will cause a lot of turnovers in this game, but also, they haven't looked great as a defense over the past several weeks. They've been giving up a decently high ADOT over the last several weeks. So I think that I am on Dobbs as well. Noah Brown could be a sneaky play, but I'm not willing to risk him over Dobbs. So what should we be doing with CD? Riding him out, LOL. Lipsy,
you have to.
It is really disappointing unless somebody is willing to give you something like, a wide receiver 2 and a wide receiver 1.
It's got to be AJ Brown or higher, or you don't even consider it. Because CD can still give you 20-day plus.
No, I'm willing to consider Malik Neighbors. I'm willing to consider like a combination of maybe like I said, like a Joe Mixon. I'm willing to consider other high volume guys, knowing that their situations have the potential to improve, whereas CD's situation doesn't. I'm willing to consider players like that, Lipsy. So like Devin Achane, people might still be down on him. I'm willing to still consider Achane. I'm willing to consider a combination of maybe Stevenson and something else, because Stevenson, for all of his terribleness, he still gets the ball at an increasingly crazy clip for someone who is so unproductive like he is. But it really depends on your situation too. If you don't need to move him, don't move him. I think that Joe would agree with that. If you don't need to move him, don't move him.
That's my answer. Yeah.
My team, Marlon, welcome back. My team is Kyler Murray, Cousins, Brees, Mixon, Monty, AJ Brown, Neighbors, DK, JSN, Brock Bowers, Kincaid, Braylon. I see you've got a lot of players that we like there. Those jerks are activating Thielen off IR when they're
hold on. Stick with Marlins, then we'll get into Wumbo.
Oh, okay. Who should I look to trade for the fantasy playoffs, and what should I change for my team? I think that one of the things that you might consider.
So one player's allowed to be kept next year for his original value. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. I think that one thing that I would definitely consider is stabilizing. Maybe that you have Braylon Allen, Addison, Justin Tucker in the lines. Maybe stabilizing one of those back positions there on your bench. But I think insofar as it's true, you have the best possibilities of players moving forward right now. And I'm going to say,
I like it.
Kirk and Kyler is going to be frustrating, but you have been with us enough that you're going to be able to make that decision on a week-to-week basis. Brees Hall is frustrating, but you can't really bench him. Mixon gets the volume. You are never going to bench him. And Monty is a stable enough flex play if you decide that you want to flex Monty. AJ Brown, Neighbors, DK, all volume-based, high-profile, high-value guys on their offenses. Fantastic. JSN will have value going forward, knowing that Geno Smith will continue to pass the ball. If they end up benching Geno Smith, this could change. But again, not bad. Brock and Kincaid is a contesting point there, because it doesn't feel like at this point in the season that you need to own both. But also,
he also has. He has a lot.
There's no reason not to own both right now for you, because you're not going to get any value for trade.
What are you gonna upgrade at? You can't upgrade a running back unless you're going from like Brees Hall into CMC. I mean, like you're not.
Yeah, I mean that would be the only move. Like if you are like our other viewer,
if you do Brees Hall, Kincaid, and JSN for CNC.
If you were like our other viewer looking to move Brees Hall and Pickens or getting Breece Hall and Pickens for CMC, that would be realistically the only way you could improve your lineup. So if it's like Breece Hall and JSN for CMC, then that would be the improvement. If it was DK and Breece for like Jamar Chase, then that would be an improvement. The only like your players are super productive, and the only things that worry me about your team is the touchdowns, right? The only two reliable guys in terms of touchdown production right now on your team is Mixon and Monty.
So that's exactly it. So
that's
Marlon, without it being a
yards are
deep
gonna be
dive,
there.
that's kind of where I would go with that. So
The yards are
Wombo,
gonna be there.
I want to hit to a bigger point that always have upset me about the apps in general in which the fantasy football is done on. I firmly believe if you didn't play the week before, you shouldn't have to cut them until they play a game. I firmly believe that. Now, granted, that's not the rules of the app you're on, clearly, Wumbo, but Thielen didn't play last week. He should not have to be cut. He should still be allowed to stay on your IR until his foot hits the field again in a game. And until he hits the field again in the game, it shouldn't matter. Because just because they activated him, they opened up his window, I believe. He's not playing this week. So you shouldn't have this issue. Long story short, Wumbo, I 100% agree with you. Programmers need to get better. People need to open their eyes about how it should be. Would I trade Tyreek and Njoku for J. Jeff and Irving? Your other receivers are Cop, Scary Terry, Hop, Mooney, JSN, Barkley, Monty, Mozart. So certainly you're now going to be weak at tight end. But you're getting J. Jeff. And I don't think I see a scenario where I don't want J. Jeff. I really like this trade overall. I think that we're just going to have to play skim the waiver wire to get you a good tight end week to week. But I'm okay with playing that game, knowing that I'm coming out with J. Jeff and Cup as my starting two receivers with Barkley and Monty. Yeah, dude, that's a good trade. Give me J. Jeff all day, every day. So I know I've asked like 100 trade questions. It's Trade Tuesday, guys. You're supposed to be asking trade questions. We're all about that. But is Chase Brown for Cup a good trade? You already have. First off, the Cup side of that trade is super one-sided. So getting Cup is the side that you should be on. I don't think that's would even be considered a fair trade without rose-colored glasses on. So, Rumple, I don't think you're going to get that one through. I want Cup on that side of the trade all day, every day. So, hey, Taylor, welcome back. Ferguson or Knox if Kincaid is out. If Kincaid's out, or if Coleman's out, or if Cooper's out, I want to play Knox. Ferguson has been a giant disappointment even before Dak attack went down. So, I'm leaning Knox heavily this week. I think that he's a really good answer, especially since, quite frankly, Allen's not running in the end zone as much. Is Lamb for Evans a good trade? He probably is, Quincy. It's a spot where Evans probably has more upside, but he's coming off that injury risk. Personally, I'd rather keep Lamb. I might be a Lamb believer when no one else is, but that's how I would look at that for this moment in time. Do I drop Koo for Sherbert the rest of the season? Dude, Nick, Bob just came back. He can handle the kicking questions because I punt on kickers.
I think it's reasonable as long as Siebert's healthy to have Siebert. He was the number one kicker, I think, going into this past week, but was dealing with that injury. So, people did drop him. Koo is on one of those runs right now that is frustrating for owners because he's on a productive team, but he's just getting extra points. And that really doesn't help us. So Siebert would be a reasonable move to go into as long as he's healthy, because you don't want to roster two kickers. So I would check on his
all
health.
In one. I love the fact you started 0-4 and you kept on fighting to get the 6-4. So how are we improving this roster, Bob? Burrow, Gibbs, Connor, Flowers, London, Kelsey, Puka, Higgins, Jacobs, Johnston, Pollard, Ridley, and then Pacheco and Waddle. So the first thing I'm jumping off the page to me is I want to move Higgins. Maybe pair with Pollard, but I want to move Higgins. Maybe Higgins a Connor could be a spot to look at because you should be able to get a pretty good return with Higgins and Collins together, or Higgins and Connor together to go upgrade that back. That would be somewhere I want to look at. Again, Benson is getting more and more carries. Higgins is getting more and more not going to play. That's a word. You'd look it up. So what I would say is that's what I want to do to upgrade your team and go from there. I want to move Connors. Or if you don't want to, if you can't move Connors, if it's too hard of a sell, do Higgins and Jacobs. Either way, you're going to get a player who's going to be your number 2 running back.
Yeah, I mean, I'm also okay sticking pat, but I think right now for you, it's just going to be making sure you make the right decisions on a week-to-week basis. And I think it's becoming more and more evident that while Connor is still a good play because he's getting touchdowns or getting volume, that it's going to become a little bit frustrating. And Connor and Jacobs, for me, are in that same category of player that are almost interchangeable on the stat sheet. So it doesn't seem like, and I understand keeping both of those guys because Gibbs's production could be, it could vary over the course of the next couple of weeks, depending on how those games shake out for the Lions. With Pacheco on the IR, I think you're good. I think it's going to come to it that you're probably going to want to start thinking about moving on from London. The volume is still there for London, and the targets are still there for London. But I want to, with the injury that he's dealing with, that it's something to really, really look at and say, he's number 5 in terms of receptions right now, sitting at 649 yards, which is pretty good. But then, outside of Jamar Chase's blow-up game, everybody's pretty much in that. If you're in that top 5, you were at like 700-ish yards or so, somewhere around there. He's doing well, but he does have a lot of value right now. So if you did want to do anything, London would probably be a valuable piece if you were looking to really upgrade into a Jamar Chase market or to move into a J. Jeff market. I don't think you need to do anything, but if you wanted to, you could do there. Joe, we skipped over Jackie here.
Oh, my bad. Put it back up.
Full PPR. Would I trade Kelsey for McBride and Evans? I would do that. Especially if I need the wide receiver help, Jackie. Kelsey,
I'm doing that trade regardless of what you need. That's an upgrade at arguably both positions. I get Kelsey's on fire right now, but I don't think it's going to maintain.
Well, I'm not going to say it's not going to maintain, but what I will communicate is that ever since Rice going down, Kelsey's volume has been incredibly high. With Juju coming back, potentially, Pacheco coming back, potentially, and Hopkins there, this volume will continue this week. He's going to have a good game this week. But I will say to you is that Trey McBride, though, is getting just as much volume and respect from his team. While the receptions aren't as much as Kelsey right now, this is great value. I would pull the trigger on this in a heartbeat, Jackie.
All right, so let's dive back to Jesse's deep dive from a moon ago, early in the show, and then Jesse, you're gonna be double hit on our quick hit coming out of this. So, would you start two receivers, one flex out of London, Lamb, Dell, Johnston, Devontae Smith? I'm scared to start Smith because of that injury. That's fair. It's also Thursday night, although I do think if he does play, he's going to be the one who goes off on Thursday. So when we look at the receivers to start, to me, it is Lamb and Dell. I'm on that bus. That's where I'm at. And the flex comes down to London or Smith. If he's healthy, it's going to be Devontae. I mean, that's just where it's going to end up. I feel like every single question, so this is a deep dive, Bob, I can do this aside, involves Drake London. And this goes back to what I said way back in the offseason, why I don't want Drake London. He is never going to be good enough to be a guaranteed start, and he's just not there. He's not where people want him to be, and the math keeps holding him back because that's what reality is. It's the math. So it's like, I understand that you guys invested early, second, third rounds in the guy, but next year, don't do that. I mean, it's basically just like, I didn't know I just kind of get into the soapbox here to hate on Drake London, but next year, don't do that, guys. Be better, be smarter. Don't make me answer Drake London questions all next year.
I will say though that I would consider rolling Drake London out to play this week.
Way to go with the current, Bob.
I'm willing to do that because I do trust volume. And one of the things was when we were talking about Mike Gesicki last week is that we knew that the volume was going to be there for the tight ends, right? We knew that was going to happen. He just didn't get it. So the volume is going to be there for the wide receivers in this game. The Broncos, while Patrick Surtain is an issue, there is reason to believe that Bijan Robinson will put this team into a good situation where even if that volume for Drake London's turns into a 4 for 44 type of game, that it is likely that he's going to be in the position to catch a touchdown this week. Now, I don't ever like to posit myself to, guess on touchdowns, but I do think that it's reasonable enough that London can do that. However, and I think this needs to be looked at a little bit more. We'll look into it a little bit more and come back about this another day. Johnston is a great play as well. It's not a sexy name on paper, but the matchup with the Bengals is a matchup that he could exploit. The only thing potentially holding them back in that game is the fact that the Chargers' offensive line isn't that great in the pass game. So, but they have not actually been asked to be.
Can the Chargers even get to them?
They haven't actually been they haven't been asked to be great, realistically speaking, at least in the pass game. So where I fall at is that while I do think that the volume of Lamb will still be there, I do question what will happen with these catches, because it was proven to us last week by the Texans that they could put a lot of pressure, and the Dallas offensive line is straight ass. Okay.
Oh yeah.
So if you're starting a quarterback, whether it's Cooper Rush, whether it's Will Grier, whether it's Trey Lance, and all three of them have proven themselves not to be great under pressure, this ball is going to have to come out fast, and it's going to have to come out to CeeDee Lamb. And it's very well could be that he catches 10 balls, but only gets like 60 yards because they're just going to be tackling him close to the line of scrimmage. I don't know if that's going to be what CeeDee Lamb wants to do.
Give him 10 passes. He's breaking one.
I agree. But I do think that right now it is worth considering Quentin Johnston this week. It's not going to be like a super, again, it's not a crazy good matchup, but it's good to the point where he's going to be productive. One of those wide receivers is going to be productive for the Chargers, whether that's Ladd, whether that's QJ. It looks to be, would have to look into that a little bit more. But my initial lean is that I definitely want to start Quentin Johnston. If I want to start him in the flex, I'd start him in the flex. I'm definitely starting Lamb because I can't get myself to bench him because the volume will be there. So then this comes down to me, London, Dell, or Devonta Smith. And my lean would be London. But again, the matchup on paper for him might be what's shying you away. So I could understand wanting to roll out Dell as well. The only thing keeping me away from Devonta Smith with your options is the injury. That's the only thing keeping me away is the injury. I think Drake London is in for a good game. So I am willing to roll out Lamb, Johnston, and London. Would you still get Tua over Wilson off waivers for week 12? All right, let's look at week 12.
So for the upcoming week, in terms of points for, we're projecting Miami to be a little bit above mid and the Steelers to be below mid. So that would be Tua. I mean, just off the quick analysis there. Like I said earlier, that Steelers-Ravens game always is low scoring.
But, Joe, we're looking at week 12. We're looking forward
week 12.
to week 12.
My bad. We're going 2 weeks out.
Mm-hmm. Looking forward to week 12
quick
here.
Little answer
Steelers
for
face
here.
the Browns. The Browns are good enough against the pass, but again, this is a divisional game. It tends to.
We got Miami as one of the highest scoring weeks against New England. So yeah, Tua.
Yeah, I like Russ this week though. I really do. Trone, I never like playing too many players on Thursday and have 3 players going this week: JD5, McLaurin, and Barkley. I wish you the best of luck. You have 3 of the best.
Not a bad 5.
Yeah, I mean, you have 3 of the best ones going, so you ain't never benching those guys. Quincy here. Start 2. May, Wilson, or Tua this week, Joe?
It's still Tua.
This week, 2? Start 2.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 2 is for both weeks, yeah.
So Tua and Wilson?
Start 2 the second. Well, I'm not starting May. I mean, New England's not going to score at all. We have them as one of the lowest scoring teams of the week, so I'm not starting May.
All right.
So it's going to be Tua and Wilson.
It is Tua and Wilson for me too, Quincy. I have the number 1 waiver down bad. It's all right. It happens. Top priority out of these: Estime, McConkey, Ridley, Jennings. I'm going
Jennings.
I'm going Jennings, Ridley, Estime, McConkey.
And mine would be Jennings, Glad, Ridley.
Injuries are rough, man. I totally hear that. Is Dell droppable now? No. Dell is startable still.
Yes, he is. What kind of question is it? Why are you hating on my boy, Tyler? Dell's a dude. Unless this is a question.
Go ahead.
Let's just try to rile me up for the sake of riling me up. Like I don't understand where the hate's at. He's projected to put up a ton of points the rest of the year. The fact that Diggs is out set him up like crazy, and he plays better when Minka's in the house.
Yeah.
That was going to be amazing, dude.
What are my thoughts on the new Bears OC? Could DJ Moore have better games ahead?
They got a new head coach and a new quarterback. Until they do that, no.
I am just really down in general on Eberflus as the head coach. Yes, I mean the OC plays a significant role in how this team is doing, and yes, this new OC just got the job and will probably assume and say, hey, let's use our playmakers as any intelligent adult who's a coach should do.
That's not the problem. The problem wasn't the play calls. The problem is the mindset inside that building that they need to share equally from a guy who can't get it to them. The problem is 100% the quarterback. It doesn't matter who his receivers are.
Yeah, and I was actually looking this up too because I was really curious about it. When it comes to attempts, Caleb Williams is sitting right there in a reasonable framework of, especially with those 2 games that he played that he was like really insane with every other quarterback in the league. And his completion percentage is, about average with most of the league. But the yardage is not there. I mean, he has 1,738 yards, I believe, something like that, which sets him at like 23rd in the league. And unless this offensive coordinator is going to drastically improve that, I don't see any reason to have great faith that DJ Moore, Rome Odunze, or Keenan Allen are going to improve. Because again, it's the same head coach. The whole regime realistically needs to change. And for the Steelers, and this is coming from a Steelers fan, George, it took the firing off of an offense coordinator and the changing to 2 different quarterbacks for the Steelers to actually start putting up points.
Mm-hmm.
So that
Yep. I
tells you
mean,
something about the head coach.
in
Steve,
general, changing coordinators in season doesn't make that big of a difference as a larger aside in macro football terminology. All right, so you'll have Tyreek. I'm curious about which running backs I should try to get. Sorry, I wasn't clear.
Yeah. If I'm trading away Tyreek right now, I still think that a guy I would target would be Montgomery. I would also try to target Chuba because the guy who owns Chuba now is probably really confused about the whole situation.
But that's a combo. You're saying Monty and Chuba. That's not Chuba by himself.
No, he's asking for what running backs to get.
Yeah, but you should be getting more than Chuba by himself for Tyreek.
I'm just naming running backs that I would want to have in a deal. Okay.
Well, I'm okay with getting Chuba, but it's Chuba in a piece. Like it would be Tracy in a piece.
No, I agree with you, but also at the same point in time, I don't know if the guy who has Chuba would do that. So, other guys would be like Stevenson in a piece because the playoff schedule is okay. You might be able.
No, for Stevenson's a rough playoff schedule. He's got to play the Chargers.
Stevenson's schedule. There is a couple games in there where it could be interesting to play him.
I don't want Stevenson.
Like I said,
I'd rather have Tracy.
Like I said, though, it's going to be a really hard move because most likely, if you're giving up Hill right now, knowing the situation, people aren't going to give you value for Hill, and it's the same problem with Lamb, right? If people are going to give you value, it's okay moving him, but I don't think that people are going to give you value.
Wombo, I don't want to hear this, man. I don't want to hear your CD hate down there, Wombo. I don't want it. I don't want it in my house. CD's going to be fine, dude.
So I traded CJ Stroud and JT for AJ Brown. Thoughts, Tristan?
Love it.
I love JT, but if you need a wide receiver, this is a great wide receiver to move into.
Yes, it is.
Like I said earlier, the passing game for Philly hasn't been on fire. The reason I looked into that is that Caleb Williams actually has more attempts than Jalen Hurts this year, which I thought was really interesting. More completions too, I believe. I'd have to go back and check that. But the Philadelphia offense is just more productive, and it's always reasonable to move into an offense that's really productive. While it sucks giving up JT, it's fair value for AJ Brown.
Yeah, dude, Wumbo, that's just a bad situation that your app screwed you in. There's just no nice way to say that. So, Ashton, you are going to be the first DD when we come back. We're going to jump in, or first quick hitter when we come back. We're going to jump into a DD from earlier in the day here, about an hour and 40 minutes ago. But, Steve, we know you're still in here because you're hitting those quick hits. So, here's your DD finally, Steve. 12-team league, PPR, Allen, Nix, Dak. Saquon, Henry, Jacobs, Benson, Hill, Scary Terry, Ladd, Shakir, McMillan, Juju, Garrett, McBride, and Laporta. What kind of trade should we do to upgrade it? So, I mean, obviously you should cut Dak and go pick up something there. But where I would start is I like that you already got Benson preemptively. I mean, I want to upgrade that receiving room, really. I mean, you have a lot of, if they could hits, but they're probably not going to hits.
I disagree on the, we'll get to that, Jose. I disagree that Terry is a gonna hit, usually on a week-to-week basis.
Yeah, but the other ones aren't.
Shakir's ceiling is not high. He's one of those other low on the totem pole in terms of fantasy points, but like in terms of what they give to their offense is still pretty high. So I do want to upgrade that wide receiver room, but I don't think you have a lot of pieces to motivate anybody to get into it. So where I think your power lies right now is in that Allen Nix combo, because you're getting almost a guaranteed floor of 16 points from two slots every single week. Then you have the Saquon Henry combo, which feels like a solid floor for both of those guys of 10 points in a given week with super high ceilings. So you're maximizing the most points that you have here. if I can move.
So what are you saying? Like do Josh Allen and like Shakir for an upgraded back or an upgraded
Steve
receiver?
said he's been offered Lamb. And Steve, if you've been offered Lamb for Tyreek, that's an interesting.
That's interesting to me. I'd probably do that.
That's a very interesting discussion to have. Looking at your room here, the only moves that you could possibly make, and this is possibly, is to go out there and try to target Darnell Mooney, okay, Cortland Sutton, or even, you might be able to go out there and try to capture Evans as well. But those are guys that I think are worth considering. Again, QJ is also a guy that's worth considering for the long term. And Jacoby Myers, you offered him Jacobs for Lamb. I mean, that's a reasonable trade to make right now, knowing where Lamb is at. But it does make that a little bit. It does.
Yeah, you're already light on running backs. I don't want to get rid of a running back for another receiver. Why don't we try to figure out how to pair it up where you do a 2-2 then, and throw and get another running back in return.
What I would do,
Shakir or Lad in it.
What I would do is looking at that, sitting here, your roster on a week-to-week basis is going to be Allen and then Nix in the super flex. Then you have Saquon and Henry as your running backs. Your 3 wide receivers are usually probably going to be Hill, Terry, and either Shakir or McConkey. And then you're really looking at your 2 flex spots. Okay. Now, what I want to say about Jacobs, because Jacobs will land in one of those flex spots, is that I'm not super confident over the points versus, like a baseball player's WAR, right? Where I don't know if Lamb is going to supersede Hill or supersede Jacobs in any game this year, but Lamb definitely still has a decently high-ish ceiling, but not as high as when he's with Dak. He's not going to go out and get their 30 points, Steve. So you're looking at a Lucas. I see that question. We're gonna look to do something to really get you into a good flex play. Okay. So what I'm looking at here is, and I know we always say trade a 1 for a 2, but in your situation, I'm looking to get a 1 into 2 right now. What I'm looking for is I'm looking at whatever owner has Darnell Mooney. Like I said earlier, I'm looking at and trying to see who is carrying Tillman right now. I'm also looking to see who has QJ right now. Okay. Those are 3 players that don't have any name value right now, but could easily slide into a nice flex position. You don't need to carry both tight ends. So what you say,
I don't get why you'd have him do that, Bob, because he already has so many receivers with Lad as his flex.
What I'm saying is that from a floor to ceiling standpoint, Darnell Mooney offers you a better ceiling right now than Shakir does. Okay.
I'm fine with that.
But
I don't want to go out and get. Right? I'd rather do Shakir and Allen for Mooney and a stud. I think you were right in the beginning that Josh Allen's the one you should move, but I think you could be able to get a serious.
I don't think you should move Josh Allen at all. He said Josh Jacobs.
Oh, I know he said Josh Jacobs, but I'm looking at this team and saying you don't need 2 quarterbacks with a floor of 16.
Yes, he does. No, it's a super flex. Yes, he does.
Oh, it is a super flex. My bad, I missed that. Yes, he does. You're definitely not doing that trade. Take back that. But no, if you do Josh Jacobs for Lamb, yeah, you're rolling it a little bit dirty at your spot, but then you just go and move Shakir and get another back, and I think you're right back in a good spot.
Yeah,
You're not going to get a super high end, but I think you're okay with that. I don't think you need to pick up volume at the receiver position once you put Lamb on this team.
What I'm
Because
saying,
you
though,
give me Tyreek or you give me McConkey as one of my flexes, and whichever other guy you're about to pick up in that trade, you're set.
Where I'm coming from in this is that he wants to also try to consider moving Tyreek.
Well, if you're moving Tyreek, you do Tyreek for the back. And I guess that's where all these questions about which back can you get for Tyreek. But if you get Lamb here and you do Tyreek, quite frankly, you go crazy. You go Tyreek and McBride and go get a really high end guy. That might be the direction I'd want to go with this.
And that's fine too.
Yeah,
that's fine too.
I mean, I think that's where I'd want to look at it.
But I'm just mentioning it from this perspective, Steve, in that the 2 flex plus the 3 wide receivers gives you the potential option of starting 5 wide receivers. And where I see at on your team right now is that I think that back end, that McConkey, that Shakir, that McMillan, that Juju, those guys could end up really returning value to you on a week-to-week basis, but it is value that is going to be frustrating for you right now in the short term. So cleaning up that back end potentially by trading a high end and then clearing that side up, because nobody's going to give away Mooney for Shakir, but they might put him in a package for Jacobs, right? If you could go out there and do Tyreek and McBride for Jettas, I'd try that. I would try
that. Would be awesome. Yeah.
I don't know if it happens, but I would try that in a heartbeat.
That's worth a swing. I was actually thinking Gibbs, but that works too.
Yeah, Ashton, should I try and trade Scary Terry and Chubb for CD and Mark Andrews? I have great depth right now and need a tight end. I wouldn't. I also have Chase, Kupp, Debo, and Mike Evans at wide receiver. You don't need CD. You don't need CD. If you need a tight end, Ashton,
I'm not opposed to this trade outright, though. Even if he doesn't need it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely not opposed to it with Nick Chubb.
It's basically Scary Terry for CD and Andrews. I would do that all day.
I like Mark Andrews right now with the volume that he's getting back. I'd do it, even though Scary Terry definitely has better production right now. But you don't need that production because you have guys that are given to you right now. So Ashton, do that trade. Go get Mark Andrews and CD. Pick up Knox for Ferguson. Again,
I would.
I would consider that. But I would monitor that Dalton Kincaid injury. 100%. I would monitor the Dalton Kincaid injury. But you're probably going to have a lot of members of your league monitoring that injury as well. So going to pick them up now is going to be better for you in the short term, I think.
Okay, so KJ clarified a previous question about his stash. It's not Dobbins, it's Edwards. So that being said, I'd rather stash Benson of the 3.
Yeah, I'd rather stash Benson still. Yeah, KJ, what I said earlier about stashing Benson, all of that is still true. Gus is gonna get his. But that his is usually 15 carries, 40, 50 yards, maybe a touchdown or 2. Ben, should I give away? Oh, this is a deep dive. We'll get to that in a deep dive there. Jose, would you guys trade Brian Robinson for Pacheco? I wouldn't. I wouldn't right now. Many people are picking Pacheco up off the waivers right now because some people have dropped him. I'm not trading Brian Robinson into Pacheco, but their optics are there to say that this isn't terrible. But I'm coming in from the perspective is I don't think Pacheco plays as much as other people do. Ben, it looks like you want this as a quick hit instead of a deep dive, but we'll do both. If we have time for a deep dive, we will. We'll hit it with the quick hit right now. Should I give away Bijan and Adams for Tyreek, Neighbors, Cooks, and Daniels? Man, right now it feels like I don't want to give up Bijan at all.
I don't.
But that's a great return.
I need to know the other 2 guys you're going to be cutting, Ben. I mean, that's the
Ben,
fundamental answer.
Who are you dropping? Who are you dropping in order to make this trade happen? And it's very clear that you want a quarterback. So who's your current quarterback too, Ben? London, Pollard, and Connor for Chase. I know he's asking for a lot, but with my lineup, it'll be crazy good. Dude, you're
totally
clearing
okay with
out.
that.
You're clearing out all in one.
You're all in win now, baby. Do it.
Don't expect 50 points. Don't expect 50 points. The matchups do
No.
get tougher. But you're clearing it out for a player that deserves for it to be cleared out. The only thing that I worry about with a trade like this, because I think we had it happen to one of our viewers a couple weeks back, with Rice trading away.
Don't live in your fears, baby. Go do it.
Trading away
do
Gibbs
this
and
trade.
moving into Rice, and then injuries happen. But I think you're settled. I think you're settled there. This is what I was laughing at earlier, Joe. Mr. Wumbo always coming through. Always coming through. Man, the Bears are not trustworthy right now. Kyler's on a bye. Herbert or Knicks. I'm on Knicks this week. And we can go into it a little bit on another day. We're going to be on Thursday or Wednesday and Thursday of this week, starting at 3:45 Eastern. But I'm on Knicks, and the optics look really good on Knicks right now.
Yeah, basically.
Ben. Bijan.
We just answered that, Ben.
For Neighbors, Reek, Daniels, and Cook.
Ben got impatient and wrote it like 7 times.
I want to know who your quarterback is right now. Jesus here. Higgins and a QB for Jane Daniels and Rashad White. I have Mahomes and Love. Should I just keep my quarterbacks? Here's the thing. This is actually
this is a very good upgrade. Getting rid of Higgins and getting Jaden Daniels and White is something I would do.
Yeah, I would probably be moving Love. His schedule is a little bit harder, but also Mahomes is worth.
You're not starting either of them once you get Daniels.
Yeah, as I said earlier a couple weeks back, that the situation for Mahomes has gotten better, but also they're undefeated. And the only reason to play Pacheco or to play Mahomes continuously is if they keep winning to go for the record. If they lose one of these next couple of games, there's reason to believe that Mahomes will continue to do Mahomes things, but not at like a highish rate. Jane Daniels is going to have to keep fighting to keep Washington in contention to do anything right now. I'd be okay trading either of those quarterbacks, like Joe said, because you're not starting either of them once you have Jane Daniels. Lucas, should I trade Neighbors for Lamb? I wouldn't. They're almost in the exact similar situations.
Yeah, Bob and I just is great. I'd rather have Lamb. He'd rather have Neighbors.
It's terrible quarterback play on teams that are most likely giving up. So the volume will be there.
Both are losing their coaches, right? Like both of those two are getting fired, right?
Lucas, you have Amon-Ra and Collins as well. Yeah,
nice.
If you would have said that you were doing this 3 weeks ago, I would have said yeah in a heartbeat. Right now, it doesn't really make any sense. The only way it would make sense is if you looked at the schedules and you saw something with week 14, or if you saw something week 15 that would set you apart to get past the week 15 game if you were fighting for a playoff spot. That's the only thing that I see as being reasonable there, Lucas. Trone, any suggestions? 11-team PPR roster: JD5, Tyreek, Cup, Barkley, Monty, Njoku, McLaurin, Mooney, D-Hop, Jason, Mostert, Tua, Taysom. Honestly, if I were you,
a lot of Miami.
Honestly, if I were you, Trone, I'd probably be moving Tyreek and using one of those bench wide receivers that I have there. Probably Mooney, but maybe JSN, and trying to move myself into a situation that feels better in my mind than Tyreek right now. Not many situations are better. I mean, he's still got the talent, right? He still has the talent to be productive. JSN is going to have the volume-based kind of production as well. I mean, when I look at it, maybe I move Tyreek and ask for Malik Neighbors. Maybe, if that's something you want to do. You could also try to pivot and move a couple of those pieces to really try to elevate into the Bijan Robinsons of the world, you're going to have to give up a king's ransom like we just had with Jamar Chase to do that. But there's reason to believe that that's a good move as well. And I would also consider Joe Mixon.
So let's dive into, we got 2 DDs left. We're going to dive into one of them right here to make sure we hit everyone and give everybody time. So 10-man half PPR, Revin, you're 3-7, kind of still in playoff contention, kind of not. So what can we do to get you over the hump? You got Josh Allen, JT, Aaron Jones, Dobbins, Pollard, AJ Brown, Hawkins. Well, more he needs to get rid of. JSN and Olave. Well, again, getting rid of DJ Moore is always a good point. Cite Wombo's previous comments for more examples. DJ Moore, it would be the starting point of this. I want to pair up DJ Moore. I want to pair up Pollard. Pollard is a guy who's swinging down for me. And collectively, I need to get a flex-third receiver out of this. So that's where I'm looking, because I don't believe in the long term of Hopkins. Maybe you do Hopkins and Pollard if you can find someone who's on that buzz. Either way, one of those two receivers plus Pollard should upgrade you into a better receiver for that slot that will be able to give you something to move forward. I don't think you're getting all the way to Metcalf, but that's kind of where you need to be looking at to try to get there. Maybe the Evans guy is still skeptical. That's, like I said, that's the ballpark I want to be looking in.
Honestly, if I were you too, the conversation I'd be having with myself is some lateral trades from position to position. Okay. So if I can move Tony Pollard, and even if it's a guy that I really don't like, right, and to get a couple positions down here, if I can move, which I'm still okay with Pollard, but if I can move Pollard to move into a George Pickens or to move into a Darnell Mooney, I'm okay doing something of that nature as well. Because Olave on IR right now, that is rough go. And DJ Moore, might end up turning into something okay. Hopkins had a rough matchup this past week. Who knows? JSN is probably worth a start. But again, when DK Metcalf comes back, JSN's role looks different. He plays out of the slot, so that rule is pretty much cemented there. But
Revin would almost have to cut DJ Moore to get him off his team. Fair enough.
But the only times that Jackson Smith has really performed has been when DK has been out. So I would take that production this past week and the matchups look pretty good coming down the pipeline for JSN. But I would, if I didn't want to do the lateral trade of Pollard into a Mooney, I would take JSN. I would sell that 33-point week. It could be a definite coming out for him, but we also thought that after week 2 and then a bunch of crap games. And then we also thought that this.
Do you think JSN could get you into Evans right now?
I think Pollard and JSN could probably get you into a Mike Evans right now.
That would be probably the direction I'd want to look at.
But here's the thing, Revin, you can't afford to move into an unhealthy Mike Evans. You have to make sure he's healthy.
That's true.
I think that players that I would target for you, Revin, would be looking at and asking myself, I love JT. I love JT probably more than the next person loves JT. But I'm going to ask myself, can he net me the most value?
So what do you want to do? JT and JSN for Chase?
Maybe you want to do that. Maybe.
Or J-Jeff, one of those two?
Something like that potentially being there is not a bad option by any stretch of the imagination. Also thinking to yourself too, oh man, I'm just looking at this. Tony Pollard right now is sitting at 666 rushing yards. That's some devil stuff right there. But
I'll tell you, man. He's on 66 carries? Hell no.
When you're sitting here with John, when you're sitting here with JT right now, because they're not moving the ball, is simply a yardage-based play. And in the next 3 weeks, he's going to probably have incredible yardage, but he has a bye week 14, and you need to win.
You do need to win week 14.
Okay. So
you can't have any Ravens either.
You need to win right now, Revin. So where I'm at is potentially going out there and doing, depending on what pieces are on teams, going out there, moving Pollard, JSN, and JT to really try to get into something that you think is going to be helpful for the long term, because you can't go after Bijan because
but you're doing a 3-2 trade at that point.
Yeah. So hold on 1 minute. So that's kind of my viewpoint on that kind of move right there. I'm just going to get my charger. My iPad's running low. I thought I had plugged it in, but that was the walkie-talkies.
Side question here, as we're seeing the background of your room, how long until the turkeys start gobbling around? Never. I liked it when there was the spiders.
Never. Turkeys don't gobble around in here. I just eat them. But yeah, that's where I'd be at, Revin. And I'd also, you can't go after Joe Mixon or anything like that. Maybe you take a moderate. Yeah, you can't even go after Tyrone Tracy right now either.
Oh, yeah, they have what, week 12?
Yeah. Yeah, and you can't go after Kamara right now either. I mean, you have the best possible bunch of guys to get you into a good situation. You've just had some bad luck. Saquon, yeah. Let me think on this more, Revin, and we'll talk tomorrow. Let me think on this more. We'll talk tomorrow.
Yeah.
I think a decent trade target for you would be guys like Mooney, Kyron Williams. But again, Mooney has the bye coming up too. So
if the guy is really down on Lamb, you might even try JSN and Pollard for Lamb.
You might be able to get that done. All right.
Else has had the bye.
Let's take a look here. Traded Braylon Allen and Leggett for Njoku to someone last week that needed stars due to bye, so I don't have to deal with Fant and Musgrave type nonsense with McBride on the bye if he gets hurt. Dude, this is a great decision, Wumbo. Finally moving off of Braylon Allen, watch him become the starter, and Leggett go off for like 65 catches this week. It always is the case.
No, I don't think I worry about that one, but I think you're pretty good.
Yeah. Current QB is Kyler there. Oh, Ben, that's to your question up there. We'll get back. Yeah, so Kyler.
Ben's the last quick hitter of the day, so we'll finish up on Ben.
Yeah. Jesse, with Otten on bye this week, which tight end do I pick up off waivers between Njoku, Hill, Kraft, and Knox? Here's how I would.
Njoku. I've been on Knox the whole day. That's because Njoku hasn't been an answer. If Njoku's on the board, he's ahead of Knox.
It would be Njoku, Kraft, Knox, Hill. It would be Njoku, Kraft, Knox, Hill. Thoughts on Breece, keep or trade? Depends on the value that you can get. I'm still willing to keep Breece Hall because I don't think that the Jets can be more pathetic than they already are right now.
They're the Jets. There's always the worst.
But I don't think unless you can move Breece and a player into CMC like we were talking about earlier, or Breece and something else into Bijan, or Breece and something else or Breece for Joe Mixon and something else. I just don't think you can move Breece. I just don't think you can move Breece right now. Brad.
And Revin, to your side point there, that's an even deeper reason why you can't have any of the week 14 buys. Yeah. Which is also stupid.
Yeah, it is not a great. God damn it, Joe. Okay, I'm back.
I just want to do it again.
Do Jonathan Taylor and Waddle for Pacheco and DK. That would give me a handcuff with Pacheco and Hunt, upgrade at wide receiver.
I don't know if I want to get rid of JT for that. I love DK, but I don't know if I want to do it just for a handcuff.
Yeah. Brad, I wouldn't do that. I'd try to make a different package together. If you're just going after Pacheco, there probably is a trade you can come up with to just get Pacheco right now.
You probably just do Waddle for Pacheco outright.
I'm okay probably with that. Try that. Nick, I have two offers. Bowers for Devonta Smith and Pop Douglas. Bowers and Eckler for Brian Robinson, JSN, and Henry. Is that Hunter Henry or am I?
It has to be Hunter Henry.
going crazy there.
I would rather of your two choices there. Essentially Bowers equals Devontae Smith in the first one, or the second one being Bowers and Eckler for B-Rob, JSN, and Hunter Henry. I
don't
like
think I'm getting
the
enough
first one
juice to
of
do either of
Devontae
those.
Smith.
Nick,
I want Devontae Smith.
It really depends on what you need. I mean, it's very clear that you have a good tight end. So why, like, if I'm moving Bowers, are you moving Bowers to get Henry as a starter or as a back end piece because you already have a good starter there, Nick?
See, to me, that looks like a back end piece.
I'm just not seeing...
To me, this basically looks like you're flopping Eckler and B-Rob. So basically, that trade comes down to JSN for Bowers. And the two choices are JSN for Bowers or Bowers for Smith. I'd rather have Smith than JSN.
Yeah, I mean, Nick, my question to you is that if you want B-Rob, I mean, the second trade is okay if you want B-Rob, but I don't really see the necessity to do either of these trades, but I need to know the rest of your team.
Yeah, that's fair too.
He countered for Gibbs, Connor, and Puka. Yeah, he's on something. All good. I'll see him in the playoffs and make sure he regrets not taking it. I like your attitude there, All.
That's right.
I like your attitude.
Got to have your lines, man.
You're welcome, Jesse. Absolutely. You have Kraft. Yeah, I don't think you need to do I do think it's worth considering trading Bowers, Nick, but I don't think that any of those combinations is something that I drastically want or that would drastically improve my team unless Devonta Smith becomes a definite starter for my team. Devonta Smith would have to become I could see a pathway where B-Rob becomes the definite starter for my team. Okay. But there's been a lot of questions today about Devonta Smith, and it feels like Devonta Smith is a really good flex play for many people, but it's not a must. I must start him right now. Okay.
All right. So Lucas and AT, you'll be the last quick hitters we got here. We're going to end on that deep dive we had earlier. So do I think trading away Brees and White for Bijan? If I can get Bijan for those two, I would do it. I'm not sure I'd accept it if I was the Bijan owner, though.
If I was the Bijan owner, I probably wouldn't accept it unless I was struggling at running back, and I would feel okay about Brees. The only thing playing into your favor in this deal is that Brees' schedule still is good. Okay. Yeah. That's the only thing. And the only thing playing against you is that Bijan has a week 14 or one of these late week buys coming.
It's either 14 or 12.
Okay.
I think it's 12.
So if you can eat that buy, then I would definitely do that. Do we expect Pacheco to be a running back one when he comes back, at least for the playoffs? Was offered to trade away Waddle for Pacheco. AT, we just mentioned this before. If Waddle is not a starter for you, if Waddle is just your flex consideration guy, it is worth trading Waddle for Pacheco. But I want to say this very, very clear, that while I'm not an injury expert, we look at these games just strictly based off of a winning standpoint. These coaches are built to win games, and they're going to play the players that help them win the games. Kansas City.
I think they're going to slow play him coming back. I think they're going to slow play him even when he does come back. I don't think it's reasonable to expect you're getting RB1 value out of him right away to answer that question. I maybe by week 17, but by then you have to be in the finals and eat 2 weeks of him ramping up. I'm not sure I want to roll these dice. Doesn't mean I'm on the Hunt bus, but I'm not sure I'm on the Pacheco bus.
Right. And to Nick's question here, just a follow-up, double flex PPR, Darnold, Dowdle, Brees, Nico, Zay, Dobbs, Bowers, Kraft, BTJ, Eckler, Brooks.
Well, to me, that's Minko and Zay pretty easily, right?
Yeah, I know, but Joe, he's asking it from his trade perspective. Is that, would you still move Bowers to get into JSN? Would you move Bowers to get
roster?
Into
he's not asking to start between. All right, gosh, I remember. Yeah.
I mean, Devontae would start for me over Dobbs.
But Dobbs just goes to your flex. But now you have. I'm not doing that trade because I want to play Bowers over Kraft. you're not getting a net gain of Devontae entering based upon what you're losing from Bowers to Kraft. So
Yeah.
I'm not pulling that
They
trigger.
really are both
If we are
mid.
doing a trade, though, I would do one of your extra receivers, either Dobbs or BTJ. And if you're okay with getting rid of Eckler, just do that. Combine the two of them and upgrade a position. Probably the running back position.
Nino, we see you down there. We'll answer that question after we get to Ben's question here. Ben, giving away Bijan.
No, it's the second one. I didn't put that first one away. We already answered the first one.
Okay, this is the second one here. Back to the Bijan, Devontae, Coker, Braylon Allen for Daniels, Reek, Neighbors, Cook. My QB is Kyler Murray. Ben,
I guess it's the same question, yeah.
Here's how I feel about this trade, okay? Is that if you are nervous about having Bijan's late bye and you're worried about potentially getting into the playoffs, that I am also comfortable with the Commanders as a team right now on their way to get me into the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
You're looking at the schedule coming up. Eagles are nothing to sniff at. Cowboys, that could be a nice rushing game for him. Titans could be a nice rushing game for him because it's probably not going to be a nice passing game. Saints will probably
but he'd still have Kyler during that part. This is all coming down to the playoff week when Kyler's out.
But this is really dependent upon what do you see? What do you
Kyler's
see
out this week? Actually, Kyler's out this week.
What do you see as your future going? Are you going to be playing? Are you going to be having the bye week, getting into the playoffs, or are you going to be on the outside, kind of looking in here, and you need Jane Daniels? Because Kyler is so frustrating to own. I understand that, Ben. As a Kyler
I'm doing this trade, Ben, because I look at the only spot you're downgrading is your starting running back, and Cook isn't the worst case consolation prize.
It's not. That's what I'm trying to say.
Tyreek gives you a shot in the dark home run, and that's how I would look. The rest of what you're giving up, Devontae Adams looks better than he is.
Mm-hmm.
Coker and Braylon Allen are just nothings. So I would do this trade. And you obviously need to have it done before kickoff on Thursday.
Yeah.
You basically have to get this trade accepted within the next hour. So you have enough time to start if you have a 2-day window. But yeah, Ben, I mean, I'm not opposed to doing this trade overall, and I'm pretty sure that's what we told you the first time.
And Ben, that to that end, the only player in this deal that you might even just be considering not wanting to move is Bijan, but you're getting back a good enough return. And while Tyreek could explode, I mean, the likelihood that happens is a little bit lower, but this also gives you the potential to move on from Kyler Murray too, Ben. So just taking that into consideration. Nino here. Which side, Pickens plus Chase Brown or Garrett Wilson? I want Pickens and Chase Brown.
And I'm never picking Garrett Wilson, baby. That ain't happening.
I want Pickens and Chase Brown in a heartbeat. You're welcome, Nick. Gianluca, giving Swift and Ridley and getting Devontae and Jacoby Myers or Josh Downs. Who do I choose, and is it good?
I'm good with getting rid of Swift and Ridley. I'd rather have Jacoby of my choice on the backside. I'm not obsessed with Devontae Adams, just not, but I still think he's better than Ridley. So,
yeah, Downs is. I mean, here's the problem with both those wide receivers, Gianluca. Jacoby, if Minshew's in, is the better play.
Oh yeah,
but if Ritter's in, garbage. Downs,
true, but I know Downs is garbage.
Is a great play. If Richardson is in, he's garbage. So you're
he's not like Tillman, who's the king of garbage time.
I mean, this is such a crazy thing to think about because a couple weeks ago I'd be okay with moving on from Ridley, but Ridley's massive volume, right? Devontae Adams has been getting massive volume too, but it hasn't done any. Like this past week, didn't do anything with it. Week before, didn't do anything.
He's not going to drop 2 touchdowns 2 weeks in a row.
I'm okay moving into Devontae Adams with this trade. I would lean Jacoby Myers, but both of those two wide receivers are spicy.
Yeah, I get it. But Devontae Adams isn't dropping 2 passes in the end zone again.
No.
He's just not.
Just one more quick hit here. Trade away Mooney and Reed for Neighbors. This is the type of trade that
I want Mooney and Reed off that side.
Could be nice. I would like Neighbors, but I do think that the production of Mooney will continue to go. The optics are really strong on Darnell Mooney moving forward with this team and continuing to fight.
It's amazing. He got out of Chicago and his life got better. Like, doesn't that just happen to everybody?
But and Reed is one of my boys, but again, he is a matchup kind of. He's a solid player by all means, but he is playing in the slot a lot, so that's a little bit more matchup dependent in there. And he could be a low volume kind of play. Neighbors is volume, but what's going to happen? And
see,
if they
so Nina, just to make sure I clarify this, so like in general, I'm all for getting the trade off the fat. I think that I can make an argument that both of those players are better than Neighbors, so I definitely want both of them. That's why I would do that.
Trone, my running back room is limited. Barkley, Monty, Mostert. Would you pick up Madison or estimate from waivers, or just handcuff Barkley with Gainwell? I'd probably go Madison. He's at least starting, and they use him for like garbage, like 1 yard rushes in. I don't like Madison, but I'm not willing. And I get the idea of wanting to float estimate. I really do. And Trone, you don't know me very well, but I would never, ever, ever, ever say that I'd want to pick up Madison. You're the first person to make me say that.
That felt weird. Like something happened inside my body. I was like, this is weird.
The world shook. I think something like snapped, right? Nick, Bowers for Love, Kincaid, and Tracy. If I'm getting those 3 guys, sure. But you don't need to get Kincaid back. You have your team is already strong there. If I'm getting Tracy, though, hell yeah. I'm moving into Tracy. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Nino, you're welcome. Revan, sort of already asked this, but Jennings over McConkey, even with CMC back and more weapons for the Niners. I get it. I understand. And Joe loves Lad McConkey.
So do.
But there is a chance, and it's a chance for both.
San Francisco's going to score.
I just want to bring this up with both of these teams. There is a chance that San Francisco could revert to their efficient ways, and Brock Purdy's passing volume goes down. It's already not very high, but it could go down. And Herbert's already in that same kind of conversation, okay? So for me, the question only comes in is that McConkey's great games have come when QJ's not there. So I do understand that McConkey is a great option, and he's one of our favorite players going into the season and throughout this season, actually. And you know that, Revan. And yes, you're right. You don't want to chase the 11 targets, but he looked good on those targets.
He did.
Okay. And while it's not always going to be there, both of these guys do have a positive outlook over the course of the season. They really do. So I would go with which player I think has a more positive outlook over the course of the season, because the team is probably going to continue to use their wide receivers to score and their tight ends to score, and that's San Francisco. Josh, I've got to drop someone to activate Nico. Drop Wicks, Corum, Coker, or Taysom.
Taysom Hill, no questions asked.
Taysom, especially since you own Pitts, Taysom is worth getting rid of. Gianluca, you're welcome. Frozen, I'm in first place, don't need to make any trades, but I could use more help at the flex. I have Lad. But I got offered Tyrone Tracy and Terry for Kamara. What are your thoughts?
Do that.
Frozen?
Because Scary Terry's going to go into your starting lineup as your flex. I think that Tracy and Kamara is basically a push moving forward. I've been on this for a couple of weeks. It will come to pass. Kamara is not as valuable as his perception is. Tracy is on the upswing. If he wasn't a giant, people will be talking about him like he's going to be, which is a top 5 back. Do that trade, because now you just made Scary Terry your flex instead of Lad, and basically a lateral move at running back. Do that trade.
From a points basis, I think that Joe's onto something there. From a name basis, it looks scary, but from a points basis, it's really strong optics to say that both Tracy and Terry will continue to produce moving forward. The only thing that you might be saying is that Kamara's schedule looks amazing for the playoffs. But again,
not when they all quit.
That's running back schedule. He's not been doing very, very, very well outside of that Carolina game as a runner. And a lot of that production has been as a pass catcher. He's still going to get that production as a pass catcher. You could still see him 6-7 receptions for 60-ish yards, which is super nice as a solid floor. But it's really hard to see the ceiling with the Saints team right now. It's really hard to see the ceiling. It's also really hard to see the ceiling with the Giants right now. Don't get it twisted. Don't get me wrong on that.
There was this Tracy's a rookie, and he's not going to be able to quit. He has to keep fighting through.
That's a good point. That's a good point. So, team players, thanks for joining us today. Joe and I are going to head out. We will be on again. Tomorrow, starting at 3:45 Eastern, and Thursday 3:45 Eastern as well. Let's finish up with Gianluca right here. I think we talked about Pacheco, but wasn't here. I'm 8-2 in my league and having him on IR. My team is Burrow, Walker, Pollard, Amon-Ra, Metcalf, Hunter, Henry, Goddard on tight end, Sutton, and would-be Pacheco. Yeah, Pacheco's solid.
That's fine. That's a good team.
The reason why, Gianluca, is that Pollard and Walker, while they are good starters and you can't really take them out of their lineup because they could produce massively, there is concerns, especially that I have for Walker moving forward as a runner. It's the same concerns that I have for as I do for Kamara, where Walker is really solid as a pass catcher. Pollard is a do-it-all right now, but they've said multiple times that they don't want to give him as much volume. Okay, so if I were to do anything, and I would be comfortable sticking pat where I am, you have the Hunter Henry Goddard thing like I have going with my team. You have Ken Walker like I got going for my team too.
Yeah, you're going to end up cutting one of those tight ends when Pacheco comes active, but you'll be fine.
And that's fine. And I think you're in a good place, Gianluca. I think you're in a good place. You have another offer of Brees and Eckler for B. Rob and Reed.
I don't like that one.
I don't like that one, Nick. I don't really, and I think it's hard, Nick, right now to move into a Commanders player or an Eagles player right now because that trade needs to get done today so that you can play them tomorrow. But B-Rob might not play tomorrow. We still don't have the info on that yet. So I just stick tight. We can talk more about it tomorrow. Hopefully you join us tomorrow. We'll be on 3:45 Eastern tomorrow, Wednesday, and on Thursday as well. Team players, thanks for joining us today. We are out.
Told you, man. You got to click that thing perfectly.
Yeah. All right.